without you I'm a mess. Ever know each other? Trust these words are stones. White caps are healing. Learning how to love. I'm melting in your eyes. I lost my place. Could stay a while. And I'm melting in your eyes. Like my first time that I caught fire. Just stay with me, lay with me, lay with me, lay with me now. You can stay and watch me fall, and of course I'll ask for help. Just stay with me now. We can take our hands off, stay in bed, just make love, that's all. Just stay with me now. I'm melting in your eyes. I lost my place, could stay a while. And I'm melting in your eyes. Like my first time that I caught fire. Just stay with me, lay with me in your eyes. I lost my place, could stay a while. And I'm melting in your eyes. Like my first time that I caught fire. Just stay with me, lay with me. I want you rolling out since last time I saw you. In case you wanna know, I'm about to say what I'm up to. First of all, I'm a squadron moving slow in a clumsy way. The peace of mind is what I want, but that will be the day. I've been going without hope for long, I've missed my stand. Running around in circles, I've been so far from myself. Searching for the energy, I've the time to make a change. To make a change in my life that I want to get past by. It's something down while I'm alive. Well, I'm 22, don't know what I'm supposed to do or how to be. You got some more out of me. I'm 22, so far away from all my dreams. I'm 22, 22, feeling blue. Well, I try to activate myself the best I can. So far on what can just bring me, I got my daily plan. Wake up late and rehearse a bit with the band, I guess it's cool. Later when I'm home again, I fall in all the hurt too. But the bad is what I do. I'm 22, don't know what I'm supposed to do or how to be. You got some more out of me. I'm 22, so far away from all my dreams. I'm 22, 22, feeling blue. That I will be weak forever. I can stay in the shape any longer. My life just another cliche. Been going without hope for long, I'll miss my sin. Running around in circles, I've been so far from myself. I try to activate myself the best I can. So for no one can shop with me, I got my daily plan. 'Cause I am 22, don't know what I'm supposed to do or how to be. You got some more out of me. I'm 22, so far away from all my dreams. I'm 22, 22, feeling blue. 22, don't know what I'm supposed to do or how to be. You got some more out of me. I'm 22, so far away from all my dreams. I'm 22, 22, feeling blue. they know what's good for you. Wake up, whoa! Wake up, whoa! A shot to the head, they're better off dead. Will you wake up, whoa! Don't wanna hate you, don't wanna blame it all on you. Out of options.
Cleansing and protection baths. Spiritual baths are one of the oldest strata of magical practice on this planet. From time immemorial, sacred baths have been believed to clean far more than just the body, and the purity of water used in conjunction with certain herbs, minerals, and oils can yield very potent results. We see evidence of sacred baths mentioned as far back as the Sumerian hymn to Nana, and see its practice reflected everywhere today, from the Christian baptism to the health spa. All over the world, 70 personal protection are places of power dedicated to magical bathing. Varanasi's Ghats on the Ganga River, Hades waterfall of Saltio, and the bathing pool in King Arthur's courtyard at Glastonbury. While some Western practitioners seem to skip bathing and purify cation in favor of more energy-based practices, such as the vanishings and shields, the magical bath is an important way to ground your magic onto the physical plane, achieving more tangible results. There is no better way to cleanse yourself of negative influences, and I recommend that ritual bathing always be a part of whatever plan of defense you employ against troubling forces. The first consideration when putting together a bath ritual is the water itself. Traditionally, you would use water from a natural source such as a spring, lake, or water collected during rainstorms. If you live near a sacred spring or river, that is ideal as a source of water, but the general idea is that the more natural the source of the water, the better. That said, I will admit that most of the time I end up using tap water, and suspect most of my clients do so as well. It is far better to use tap water than not to take the bath at all. After you are settled on the water to be used, you need to know what you are adding to the bath. Formulas typically call for 3 or more ingredients, usually odd numbers. These ingredients can be mineral, herbal, or zoological, and what they symbolize defines the nature of the bath. There are traditional bathing formulas for everything from drawing money and love, to influencing those around you, to repelling jinxes and negativity. It is this last category that we are concerned with here, and the following are 3 examples of simple formulas that we can use. Please note that these formulas are only recommended for use by adults, and everyone should be careful with sensitive areas of the skin. 71 Protection and Reversal. Magic protection. A good protection bath includes salt, ammonia, and vinegar. The salt and vinegar can be equal parts of about ½ a cup or so, but the ammonia should only be a teaspoon diluted in at least 4 gallons of water, as it is toxic and can be harmful if inhaled. Ammonia is considered such a strong cleaner that if more is used, it will not only remove negative influences, but positive and neutral ones as well. Cleansing. White oak bark, cinnamon, and pine needles compose a formula that I like for cleaning away jinxes and negativity. A hyssop bath is also traditional, especially for clearing evil that you brought upon yourself. These ingredients can be added liberally to bath water. Reversing harm. Eucalyptus leaves, red pepper, and rue. This is specifically for reversing harm back upon a sender and can be used in conjunction with the spells in Chapter 7. You can add approximately ½ a cup each of eucalyptus leaves and rue, and a pinch of red pepper. These 3 bath formulas are just a sample of the almost infinite combinations that exist amongst traditional formulas for protection and reversal. consult the sources listed at the end of the book for more information on herbs and sacred bathing in general. 72 Personal protection timing is also a factor in the bath. Most often, baths are prescribed to be taken just before dawn so that the rising sun is working with you. If you know that you are going to confront someone who is working against you, or you are traveling to an area that is infested with a bad psychic ambiance, then taking a protection bath right before that confrontation is also a good idea. If you are afflicted with your symptoms at night, then bathing before bed would be the best idea. Follow the lunar phases, waning moon for driving away and waxing for attracting, or the planetary days of the week for timing your bath. But in the cases where an attack is manifesting now, it is better to start the ball rolling immediately rather than waiting for the proper day or moon phase. Let common sense and your own inclinations be your guides. I should mention here that the ritual bath is not a bath to get you physically clean. You are not concerned with lathering and shampooing, only with ritual. The manner in which you wash during the bath is very important. Scrub up from the feet to the head to draw things to you, down from the head to the feet to push energy away from you, and soak to alleviate symptoms. During the bath there is often the reading of a spell or prayer. For instance, in Hoodoo, and also in Solomonic magic, certain psalms would be read during the bath, such as the 23rd for protection and the 51st for purification. A pagan might do well to recite one of the protection incantations from the Magick. Words of your own will often do as well or better than these traditional readings, and you should feel free to use anything that fits the situation. Here is an incantation that calls upon Hecate and Helios, which fits well with the other rituals in this book. 73 Protection and Reversal Magic. Hail to you, Hecate of the Threshold. Hail to you, Helios Most High. Lay your hands upon me in consecration. Drive sickness and evil from my limbs. May these waters drive away my attackers and cast them down into the 4 rivers of Hades. May the air blow them away to the 4 winds. May I forever stand in your luminous light and have my path made clear. Hail to you, Hecate of the Threshold. Hail to you, Helios Most High. In the old days, before indoor plumbing, people typically washed themselves in basins that they could then carry outside and dump. Another traditional element of a spiritual bath taken at dawn would be the dumping of water towards the rising sun in the east, and thus the final casting out of any negativity drawn out during the bath. Of course, in this day and age we mostly bathe indoors, and so I understand that most people will want to use their bathtub drain to get rid of the water. I admit that I myself most often take my baths in the tub and let the water flow down the drain, but I have used a basin and done it the traditional way as well. In matters that are very important to me, find it worthwhile to do it the old-fashioned way. Try it both ways for yourself, and see if you don't find a difference. Amulets, talismans, and charms. Much has been made about the difference between amulets and talismans. Some, such as Donald Michael Craig, claim that an amulet's 74 personal protection drives forces away and a talisman attracts things. Others claim that amulets refer only to those charms found in nature, which are imbued with innate qualities such as hagstones, and talismans refer to objects crafted by the witch and charged in a ritual. There doesn't seem to be much linguistic support to either of these claims, and I won't argue one way or the other. What is important is that the carrying of charms is one of the best known and widely practiced methods of magical protection on the planet. Certainly this form of magic has crossed over into mainstream culture more than any of the other practices in this book, and it is not uncommon to find rabbit's feet, saint medallions, or rune necklaces worn by folks who consider themselves to be about as far from witchcraft as can be. Amongst naturally occurring amulets, iron ranks as the king of protective substances. To its use in protecting against spirits, witches, and fairies is well known all over the world. So disruptive is iron to spirits that some traditions of the craft do not allow any metal inside the circle until it is well consecrated and stable. Many old cemeteries are surrounded by iron fences with spikes, not only to keep intruders out, but to keep the ghosts in. Before we learned to mine and smelt iron, a major source of iron for ancient man was meteorites that had a high concentration of iron and nickel. The sky iron is particularly valued in magic and is one of the metals called for in the traditional construction of the Tibetan PHYCHIC. The practice of driving an iron nail or knife into the door frame to keep witches out is well known throughout Europe and possibly derives from Pliny's Historia Naturalis, which talks of iron's soporific properties. 75 protection and reversal magic, F, or take a knife or dagger and make an imaginary circle 2 or 3 times with the point thereof upon a child or an elder body, and then go round with all about the party as often. It is a singular preservative against all poisons, sorceries, or enchantments. Also to take any iron nail out of the coffin or sepulchre wherein man or woman lieth buried, and to stick the same fast to the lintel or side post of a door, leading either into the house or bedchamber where any doth lie who is haunted with spirits in the night, he or she shall be delivered and secured from such fantastical illusions. Note that not only does Pliny speak of iron's ability to disrupt enchantments, but specifically of the power of an iron coffin nail. Coffin nails are particularly valued in hoodoo practice as well, and are used both in the laying of curses and the protection from them. I myself have a cross made from 2 iron coffin nails, which serves as a powerful protective amulet. The cross itself is also a powerful protective symbol, and has a history that extends much further back than Christianity. The equal-armed cross is one of the oldest religious symbols on earth and has spawned many variants, including the Crux Ansata, or Ankh, of Egypt, and the swastika, which is known as the Yungdrung, or the Eternal, in Tibet, and the Philfot, meaning 4 feet, in Europe. The symbolism of the cross is manifold and can indicate the meeting of 2 worlds or planes, the spinning wheel of the sun, or the division of the world into the 4 directions. Its use as a symbol of the sacrificed god should not be overlooked and is not restricted only to the Christian tradition. The 76 personal protection Persian Roman Mithras, the Etruscan god Ixion, and the Aztec Quetzalcoatl have all been shown crucified on crosses of one kind or other. You can certainly purchase a cross to wear as an amulet, but I have always found the actual binding of 2 beams together to be a powerful moment and an ideal time to charge the cross ritually, so I recommend making your own. The material is up to you, but it should have meaning. You can use a sacred wood such as rowan, oak, or thorn, or you could use the aforementioned iron nails. Coffin nails can be difficult to come by, so you may just have to find iron nails at a hardware store, or bones. Chicken bones or other animal bones will more than suffice, but you can use human bones if you want, which can be purchased legally from some place such as the Bone Room in California. If you do use bones, be sure to make an offering to the spirit that is attached to the bones and do a divination to see if there will be any obstructions in using them. To work the spell, simply hold the 2 beams of the cross out in front of you with your arm fully extended, in a pose similar to someone in a horror movie repelling a vampire by holding 2 sticks together. Visualize the arms of the cross extending outward into infinity, and focus your mind on the point where they cross. As you hold the cross out, make a proclamation such as, by Boreas, Zephyrus, Eurus, and notice by Phlogiston, Cocytus, Styx, and Agron, by all the princes and powers of the 4 directions. I bind and consecrate this cross that it may forever be a shield and protection. 77 protection and reversal magic against all manner of malevolent powers, hateful spirits, and baleful spells. By will and word so shall it be. After charging the cross, set it down upon the altar or on the ground without separating the beams, and bind them together by wrapping them in black string or leather. If you are working with iron and have the skill, you can weld the cross together. Apart from the cross, there is an almost infinite variety of protective symbols that can be purchased or made into amulets. The hand, also known as the Hand of Fatima, the daughter of Muhammad, or Hand of Miriam, sister of Moses and Aaron, is a popular symbol of protection from the Middle East. It consists of a downward pointing hand, usually with an eye in the middle. A variation of the Hamza hand is the eye set in blue glass, found everywhere in Morocco, Turkey, Italy, and also in Santeria. This takes numerous forms, ranging from a simple eye painted onto a small circle of blue glass, to a blue Hamza hand with an eye, to ornate horseshoes with eyes painted on them. The PHYCHIC, or surrogate penis, of Thailand is a penis amulet usually with a monkey, tiger, or some other animal riding on top of it. The penis amulet protects against spirits and spells that would cause infertility or loss of virility and would be worn on the belt. If it falls off, that is a sign that it has done its job and absorbed an attack on behalf of your actual genitals. 78 Personal protection. The triskel is shaped like a three-armed swastika. It is composed of three bent legs united at the thigh. In Greece and Italy it often has a Gorgon or Medusa head at the center and petrifies any witch or harmful person. Italy's mano fico and mano cornuto are protective hand gestures that are commonly seen on hand amulets. The mano fico, or fig hand, places the thumb in between the index and middle fingers of the closed fist. The mano cornuto, or horned hand, raises the index and pinky fingers up from a closed fist, representing horns. Both of these amulets can be made from silver, iron, pewter, but are especially potent when made from blood red coral. The silver dime is a particularly American protective amulet. Not only does it have the protective qualities of silver, but it is said to turn black if someone has cursed you. This belief originates in the practice of placing silver dimes in your shoes, where a root doctor would put gopher dust, hot foot powder, or some other cursing powder. These powders almost always have sulfur in them, which would turn the dime black. The list of traditional protective amulets could and does fill several books, but these are a good start to any collection of appropriate charms. Apart from these amulets, there are talismanic seals that can be drawn on parchment or engraved on an appropriate metal. An endless variety of these can be found in grimoires such as the Keys of Solomon. The two most famous of these are the so-called Satyr Square and the Abracadabra charm. 79 Protection and Reversal Magic. The Satyr Square is derived from a Latin palindrome that reads Satyr Arepo tended opera rotus, and can be arranged into a magic square. SATRAREPOTENETOPERAROTAS. Figure 3.1 Satyr Square. Satyr means to sow. Tenet means to hold. Opera means work, care, or effort. Rotus means wheel. Arepo is a more troubling word, as it doesn't appear in Latin. Some think it indicates a proper name, others believe it is borrowed from Gautlish and means to plow. Still others believe that it is an Aramaic version of the Greek phrase for Alpha and Omega. This last interpretation is supported by the fact that you can arrange the letters to form the words Pater Noster, our Father, in a cross, leaving only two S and OS left over, thus making a Christian amulet that looks like figure 3.2 on page 81. Another anagram can be made from the square that makes the phrase Satan, Terarote, Reparato opes, Satan, I bid you thrice, return my fortune back to me. Whatever its true meaning, it has been used since the fall of Pompeii in protective magic, and continues to be used to this day. It is not uncommon to find the seal used amongst the Pennsylvania Dutch as a hex sign. 80 Personal protection. PATAOR Paternoster OSODER. Figure 3.2 Paternoster Cross. Abracadabra is a magical word that unfortunately has gotten a bad reputation in modern times because of its use by stage magicians to dress up their feats of prestidigitation. The word once enjoyed a reputation as an ancient word of power, and there are several versions of its origin. The most accepted etymology of the word is that it comes from the Aramaic word Avracadabra, which means, I create as I speak. Another possibility is that word comes from a different Aramaic phrase, Abhadakadabra, meaning, disappear like this word. It is this last meaning that lends itself best to its use as a written amulet. The amulet is simply the word abracadabra written over and over again, dropping one letter each time. The charm first appeared in the 2nd century into Medicinal Praecepta by Cyrenius Sammonicus, 81 protection and reversal magic physician to the Roman Emperor Caracalla, and is reputed to drive away disease. Since then it has been used as a magical charm to drive away not only disease, but malevolent spirits and curses. Abracadabra abracadabra abracadabra. Certain herbs and minerals are carried as protective amulets as well. Salt, for instance, is said to drive away unwanted people. Asafoetida drives away disease and curses, and pretty much anything else that smells it. Devil's shoestring binds up evil spirits. Agar helps make you invisible and can be used in conjunction with the invisibility ritual on pages 67-70. These, along with broom, dragon's blood, garlic, mistletoe, eucalyptus, citronella, rosemary, lemons, and mandrake are just some of the herbs that can be carried alone or in a conjure hand. The conjure hand is also known as a mojo bag or gree bag. The word gree means gray and indicates that the bag has a combination of white and black magic at work in it. These bags are a staple of the American Hoodoo tradition and are made for a variety of 82 personal protection purposes. 5 conjure hands for protection can be made by gathering the appropriate materials into a flannel drawstring bag of an appropriate color, usually red, or binding them up in cloth, as is the style in New Orleans. The number of ingredients should be an odd number, 3, 7, and 9 being the most common. You should avoid bags with more than 13 ingredients. Here are a few simple 3-ingredient formulas that I like. The devil's hand 6-9 pieces of devil's shoestring to bind up the evil, a devil nut to scare it off, and some asafoetida, which is also called devil's dung, to drive it away. Place it all in a black bag. A reversing hand eucalyptus leaves, salt, and crab shells carried in a red bag will reverse spells and harm back upon the sender. Angelic protection particularly potent for women is a conjure hand of angelica root, balm of Gilead buds, and salt. Carry in a white cloth. This hand is said to smooth things out in a less confrontational way than a reversing or straight-on shielding charm. Jinx breaker saltpeter, sulfur, and lemongrass carried in a red flannel bag is a good formula for breaking up a jinx and opening the door to new opportunity. 83 protection and reversal magic travel protection mugwort, comfrey leaves, and fennel will keep you safe during travel, warding off not only harmful energies, spirits, and spells, but the law as well. Whether you use one of these formulas, a traditional formula from somewhere else, or one of your own devising, a mojo bag should be consecrated and enlivened with spirit. A traditional American root worker might use a psalm or an impromptu prayer to charge a bag, and you should feel free to do the same if you like. Some root workers talk to the bag as if it were alive, and give it instructions. In Voodoo Tales as told among the Negroes of the Southwest, collected from original sources, the folklorist Mary Alicia Owen has made a record of one such ritual performed on a charm that she hired a root doctor named King to make for Charles Godfrey Leland, the author of Aridia, Gospel of the Witches. "Now," said he, addressing the ball, as he dangled it between his thumb and finger, "Yo name is Leland, Charles Leland. I's gwine ter send yo a long way off unter master, mighty long way off, cross big watch tat the ocean. Go out into woods and fresh yo say fo yo start. Go long. Do yo ye me? Is yo gwine? Is yo gwine way off? Is yo climbing? Is yo climbing him? Ho PHISOARCHAIOS ho Drukan ho megas honkai, hunkai ho ZOM2AIONAS meditio UPNEUMATOSSOU. O ancient serpent, O great dragon who was and who is throughout the aeons, be thou with our spirit. When I sing this, a sufficient number of times, I usually feel a change in the air. I'll see several invisible doors are opening around me. or there is a sudden shift in awareness, as if I can't remember for a moment how I got there. Once I am done, I spit into the bag and say, "So shall it be." The Wheel of Hecate. In keeping with the Hecadian spells in this book, I want to present the seal and charge that appeared to me in a dream after a Hecate working in 2002. The symbol is simple enough and looks like a wheel of tridents or pitchforks. See figure 3.3 on page 86. 85 Protection and Reversal Magic figure 3.3. It can be inscribed on parchment or engraved in metal. It can also be painted on the floor as a magical circle of protection. The charge of the symbol invokes not only Hecate, but 4 groups of the triple feminine figures from Greek mythology: the Furies, the Graces, the Fates, and the Gorgons. To charge the seal, hold your hands in the gesture called the Triangle of Manifestation, palms facing the seal, tips of the thumbs and index fingers together making a triangle through which you can view the object that you're charging. Use the following invocation to charge the seal. 86 Personal Protection. Hail to Hecate, key holder of the world. Hail to Enodia, keeper of the triple road. Hail to Nekuia, guardian of the grave nether, nocturnal, and infernal one. I call thee by thy 3 secret names: Ereshkigal, Nibudizo Aleph, Actiophis O Hecate. By your name I call forth the Fates. All-powerful Moray Clodo, Lashsis, and Atropos I stir, conjure, and call thee. You, who originate, measure, and cut the fabric of life, take mercy upon thy thread, and spin the tide of battle in my favor, O Hecate. By your name I call forth the Furies. Terrible ones spawn from the blood of Uranus Electo, Tisiphone, Megara I stir, conjure, and call thee. Come forth from Airbus and protect the bearer of this seal through righteous wrath. Drive out all attackers. May not even the names of my enemies exist. O Hecate, in your name I call forth the Gorgons. 87 Protection and Reversal Magic. Serpent Hair Guardians of the Secret Crossroads. Uriel, Stheno, Medusa I stir, conjure, and call thee. Come forth from the west and protect the bearer of this seal. You who are covered in impenetrable scales, with serpent hair and hands of brass, guard against all malicious spirits and sorceries. Be present and stand ready. O Hecate, by your name I call forth the Graces. Beauteous ones who dance eternal through the heavens. Thalia, Euphrosyne, Aglaia I stir, conjure, and call thee. Come forth from the glades and attend your sorcerer. Heal all harm that has been done by my enemies and lead me on the paths of plenty. Hecate Propylaia, Hecate Phosphoros, Hecate Propolos Protectress, Illuminator, and Guide. It is in your name I call the spirits to ask for their favor, fury, protection, and grace. It is by your power that it shall be done. Hail to Hecate, keyholder of the world. 88 Personal Protection. The invocation follows a simple pattern. First it invokes Hecate as the supreme goddess and then, in her name, calls forth the spirits. These triple groups of spirits are invoked in this particular order as a type of defensive strategy. First, the Fates are called upon to lend fortune's favor to the whole situation. Next, the Furies are called upon to forcefully drive out the offending influence from our sphere. After the influence has been rooted out by the Furies, we set up guard against further attack by invoking the Gorgons to stand guard. Finally, we invoke the Graces to heal any damage done and ask for their benevolent blessing. The symbol that is connected with this spell can be engraved onto metal, preferably silver, burned into wood, or made on parchment and carried. It can also be drawn over a door as a protection glyph or on the floor as a protective circle. 89 Blank page. Chapter 4 Protection for the home. Now that we have dealt with methods of personal protection, we will move on to protecting the home. Just as Superman needs his fortress of solitude when things get rough, a witch's home should be a refuge even amidst the strongest attacks. The home, and car and office, is in many ways a magical extension of ourselves. If an attacker lacks a good personal item, such as hair or clothing, to use as a magical link, the cunning sorcerer will usually target the home instead and use it as a giant magical link. Throwing gopher dust or planting a gree on someone directly is a bit more noticeable than going to his or her home in the dead of night and planting it on the doorstep or burying something in the yard, and so it is one of the time-honored ways of delivering a curse. 91. Protection and reversal magic. Apart from attacks by other sorcerers, the home of a witch is often the site of many rituals that will attract all kinds of varied spirits and forces. Contrary to popular occult teachings, spirits and forces are not instantly and permanently shut off when the circle is closed or a banishing ritual is done. Nor should they be. A witch's home should be a house of the spirits, where not only can they be conjured and cast but they can approach you in return. This is how a relationship with the intelligences and spirits is built, and we should not mistake the instructions for protecting the home as instructions for shutting off all contact with the other worlds, powers, and denizens. We should, however, have some defense set up to repel forces that are hostile or draining to us, that may get snared into our home by our magical actions. Most of us have many different visitors come and go from their home, not all of whom have been vetted and shown to be safe. We feel safe in receiving visitors because we have some kind of security at our disposal, even if it's only knowing how to dial 911 if one of our visitors gets threatening or violent. We must learn to do the same with the spirits. I will be referencing the home in this chapter, but most of the instructions can also be applied to the car, to the office, or to anywhere else that you spend a lot of time. Likewise, instructions for the house are usually applicable to an apartment, and what isn't able to be done to the letter can be altered with some ingenuity. Instructions that call for something to be buried in the yard, for instance, can also be buried in a potted plant in an apartment. Floor wash. The floor wash works for your home in the same way that your bath does for your body. Washes are a very old and traditional part of 92 protection for the home magic that are especially prevalent and who do practice. There are floor washes to serve every magical end, from stopping gossip, to drawing trade, to brothels, to making peace, but we are concerned here only with those washes that are used in magical defense. More information on other types of washes can be found by consulting the sources listed at the end of the book. A floor wash to repel harm is applied from the rear of the house toward the front door and out, as if you were gathering up the unwanted influence and pushing it out through the door. A floor wash for attracting is done exactly the opposite and moves from the front door toward the rear of the house. If your house or building has many floors, start from above and work down to repel, and the opposite to attract. If your house is carpeted, you can mix up a batch of the wash in a spray bottle and use it to spray the carpet, or if you are more traditional, you can use a feather or an aspergillum to sprinkle the wash onto the carpet. The general pattern of either back to front or front to back should be followed whichever method you use, and it will be necessary to map out your path through the house before you begin. As with the bath, the floor wash is ideally made with water gathered from a natural source such as a river, spring, or collected rainwater. Water from the tap will do in a pinch, but water from a natural source is traditional and should be used if you can get it. A relatively small amount, a tablespoon to a cup, of ingredients are added to a gallon or more of water and prayed over fervently. If you don't want to add the ingredients directly because of the mess, you can often brew them into a tea and add that to the water. I have listed some formulas that are useful in defensive and protection magic. Again, I have kept the formulas to simple 3-ingredient 93 garlic, pepper, vinegar, sugar, lavender, rosewater, exorcism, wash, peace, wash, protection, and reversal magic washes. Those interested in more complex formulas are invited to consult the many magical herbals. To clear away malefica, pine needles, saltpeter, your own urine, first of the morning, repelling and keep away wash witches, salt 1 valerian root, broom, spiritual cleansing, wash, powdered eggshells, oak bark, lemongrass, 94 protection for the home. You can use these or other formulas whenever you think they are needed for a room or a whole house. It is a good practice to choose one good cleaning formula and use it with every new moon, whether you are under attack or not, especially in your temple space. When you are done with your washing, you should take the excess wash and dirty water and dump it out the front door toward the east. As with baths, the wash is best done in the morning before dawn, but can be used at any time as needed. For instance, if someone who you consider an enemy leaves your home, you can apply the keep away wash right after they leave to compel them not to return. Incense. There is no more prevalent and archetypal aspect to magical ritual than the burning of incense. Nearly every culture on earth recognizes the spiritual power that certain herbs, resins, and woods have when burned. By imbuing the material substance with our aspirations and desires, then burning it, it moves from the material to the intangible, and finally over into the spiritual dimension, where our prayers are heard. You can burn incense in a stationary holder, but if you are using it in a ceremony of cleansing or banishing, you should use a censer or something that you easily can carry around. The pattern of censing with incense is the same as washing. Back to front and out the door to expel, front to back to attract. Incense recipes are bound, and you should feel free to experiment or in calm times with different formulas. When you are in dire need of defense or when someone else is relying on you are not the times to try out something new, so be sure to pick out a few successful recipes before you need them. Some excellent incense formulas that I have used are 95 mullein sage root camphor mint pine for reversing harm for calming spirits protection, and reversal magic for general cleansing, protection, and exorcism. Frankincense myrrh dragon's blood floor washes can be said to represent the two feminine elements, water, the water for the wash, and earth, the herbs, minerals, and other ingredients in the wash. Incense represents the male elements, air, the smoke, and fire, the burning. The combination of incense and floor wash is a very comprehensive way to imbue an environment with your will. As with the bath, the process is empowered by speaking a prayer or spell while washing or censing. Psalms are often used for this purpose in the various traditions of Christian witchcraft. Quotes from the Chaldean oracles too lend themselves nicely to the process, as do the various Wiccan formulas for exorcism by salt water and incense. I liked the following formulae for protection, cleansing, and exorcism. 96 protection for the home by earth, the body of the gods, by water their flowing blood, by air the breath of the gods, by fire their burning spirit. I drive away all evil, harm, and hate. Apopantas kako de monos. Hicus esti babelahoi. Psyche. 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 Though I have included this spell in the chapter on home protection, it can just as easily be used with a bath incense combination and applied directly to a person. Powders and dusts apart from floor washing and censing, it is also traditional to lay powders to influence a place for good or for ill. Dusts and powders can consist of just one material purely or can be a combination of herbs, minerals, and even animal materials that are ground down and either used alone or mixed with a neutral powder base such as talcum. When dressing the room with powders, you can either circle the perimeter or lay small piles in each of the four corners and one in the center. In some cases, you will want to lay powders at strategic points such as doorways and windows. The use of powders for protection was highlighted in the 2005 movie The Skeleton Key, where Kate Hudson's character used red brick dust to keep her enemies out of her room. I wouldn't bet on the dust's ability to work like it did in the movie, literally making enemies act as 97 protection and reversal magic if an invisible wall was barring them entry, but it is a traditional practice and people all over the southern United States use it to protect their homes. Though graveyard dust is often thought of as a material used in cursing, it can also be used for protection and many other positive purposes. It all depends on whose grave the dirt is taken from. Back when it was normal for people to build their own houses and pass them down through the family, it was not uncommon for people to use graveyard dust from the grave of a family member to protect the house, especially if the dirt could be obtained from the grave of the person who built the house, as they would have a special interest in protecting the property that you worked so hard on. To collect graveyard dirt, You cannot simply take it from the grave without giving anything back in return. A traditional offering would be some whiskey or a dime, and if you knew the family member in life, you could offer him something that he enjoyed in life as well. Take the dirt and sprinkle some in the four corners of your house and talk to the spirit, asking him to protect your house for you and keep away all harm. If you don't have access to the grave of a relative that you can rely on, you can also use the grave of a soldier. In every case of using graveyard dust for whatever reason, it is a good idea to do a divination to see if the spirit is willing to work for you. 3. Cascarilla is also a valuable defensive tool. This is a white chalk made from powdered eggshells and is usually sold in small paper cups. Eggs represent the very stuff of life itself, and Cascarilla enjoys a reputation in Santeria as a powerful protector. It can be used to draw protective symbols on walls or on the ground, and also on the body. Whenever I know that I will be in a magically hostile environment or 98 protection for the home handling an object that someone thinks is fixed or cursed, I draw bands around my arms with 3 crosses around through the band. I also mark the inside of my shoes with Cascarilla crosses. Apart from these single ingredient powders, there are also herbal condition powders that are useful in defensive magic, such as Fear Not to Walk Over Evil and Fiery Wall of Protection, that can be purchased from any good botanica or occult store. Some recipes that I find useful are protection against malicious witchcraft for trefoil St. John's wort dill vervain to establish peace in the home Southern John root lavender pennyroyal general protection powder wormwood Solomon seal blue kahosh. Any of these formulas, or others that you invent or research, can be made by powdering the herbs and mixing them into a powder base. 99 protection and reversal magic such as talcum powder. I have included powders under the heading of protection for the home, but they can also be used on the person just like regular talcum powder. Amulets for the home. Just as there are charms carried or worn on the person, there are amulets designed to imbue a place with their protective qualities. I already spoke about the use of iron in the last chapter and the use of iron fences to keep spirits in or out. Another use of iron as an amulet for the home is the ubiquitous horseshoe. There are many legends concerning the horseshoe, some of which are conflicting. For instance, some believe that the shoe must be hung with the points up or else the luck will run out. Others believe that it must be hung point down so that the luck pours into you. I hang mine point down, and invite you to rely on your own intuition and inclination. The origin of the horseshoe's use as an amulet is lost in antiquity, but some believe it originated as a clandestine symbol of lunar goddess worship, and thus connected to the underground witch cults. There is also a legend that the horseshoe's power comes from Saint Dunstan, who was a blacksmith before eventually becoming the Archbishop of Canterbury. The story is that he was asked to shoe the devil's horse, and placed a shoe on the devil's hoof instead. He would only consent to take it off if the devil promised to never bother a home that had a horseshoe hanging as an amulet. There are also horseshoe amulets made of blue glass with eyes on them that are a version of the Morocco amulets that we talked about in the last chapter. These amulets are not only worn, but hung in the home or car. 100 protection for the home mirrors are another very popular way of repelling evil from the home. Their use is very prevalent in China, where bagua mirrors surrounded by the 8 trigrams are placed over doors and out windows to repel evil. In Morocco, it is not uncommon to find large mirrors in the shape of arms and hands or eyes that will repel evil in the same way. To use mirrors in protecting the home, you can purchase small round mirrors from the craft store and put them up near doorways and windows to reverse negative energy sent to you. If you wanted to get more complex, you could set the mirror in a small wooden disc and surround the glass with protection symbols such as Figure 4.1 Mirror Protection, Sigil 101 Protection, and Reversal Magic. Use a spoken charm, such as the following, when placing the mirror or at its post. Mirror Shield, where you are sit no spell may pass, nor ill beget. All devils captured in thy face are driven backwards from this place by the name of fearsome, he Caton by my will, so shall it be. Certain woods are also said to protect against occult attacks. In parts of England there is a custom of growing hedges of hawthorn and blackthorn to keep away spirits. Hawthorn is also the traditional wood used to make stakes to impale vampires upon, and in Bosnia it is placed upon the navel to keep corpses from returning to life. Yew trees are also rumored to keep the dead at bay and are planted in graveyards for that very reason. The hanging of thorny branches of almost any kind over a doorway to keep away witches is another custom that is spread all across Europe and also exists amongst Native Americans. In England, Rowan crosses bound with red thread are another popular amulet against witchcraft. All of these protected woods can be bound to the rafters and beams of a house to strengthen the structure against magical attack. Another classification of house amulets is those which are believed to frighten away demonic spirits. The best known of these, of course, is the gargoyle or chimera, which can be seen on many buildings and churches in almost any major city. Gargoyles are used architecturally as a way to direct rainwater, but because of their often fearsome appearance, they have come to be thought of as protectors of the building and its inhabitants. In Tibet and Nepal, a Garuda image of metal or 102 wood is often seen above the door. The Garuda is a fearsome mythical bird that routs out troubles caused by evil Nagas. 5. And the Garuda is most often seen with a serpent in its mouth to symbolize this. Protection for the home. Another amulet in this class is the drop of bercornis, which is the seed of a Chinese plant sometimes called the water chestnut 6 and looks somewhat like a devil with horns or a bat. I have seen people use the seed for protection in Nepal and America as well, where it is known as a devil nut or bat nut. Generally, it is hung above the door so that it can frighten away evil in the same way that the Garuda and gargoyle do. I will talk more about these amulets and their use as spirit houses in Chapter 6, which discusses guardian spirits. Decoys. Some amulets are not designed to keep evil away but rather to act as decoys that absorb the hit in your place. One of the most famous of these types of amulets is the witch bottle. Hundreds of witch bottles, Figure 4.2 Garuda amulet, Figure 4.3 Devil Nut 103 Protection and Reversal Magic have been found by archaeologists between England and Germany, and it was not uncommon for a household in the 1600s or 1700s to have one buried somewhere on the property. A witch bottle can be made with a glass or ceramic bottle, to which 9 needles, 9 pins, and 9 nails are added. Other sharp objects, such as fish hooks and razors, can be added as you see fit, as can lethal herbs, such as nightshade and hemlock. Finally, you need to add your own urine to the bottle. The urine attracts the spirit and spell looking for you, and the sharp objects entangle and destroy it. Some people place hair and fingernail clippings into the bottle as well, but I recommend against it, as they can be removed and used as magical links against you if the bottle is found. I suppose that the urine could be removed as well and used against you, but it's difficult to remove when it dries up, not to mention very undesirable to work with if it's not yet dried up. The bottle is then sealed and buried somewhere on your property, usually under the walkway or doorstep. It is an old belief that if a witch who means you harm walks over the bottle, he or she will experience great pain on the spot, and even possibly die. Another variant on the magical decoy is the simple egg. To use this spell you should take a hard-boiled hen's egg in your right hand and circle the perimeter of the home 3 times clockwise. As you do so you can use the following spell as an incantation. Seed of life, to you I pray no evil in your present state in this sphere, where you will cast no chaos or curse or crossing last all hags and haunts and hunting dead be drawn from me to thee instead. 104 Protection for the home by Hecate's power. This charge I give to guard the home in which we live. After the egg has circled the house, you can put it in a box and bury it under your doorstep or wall it up in the house. You can also place it on your altar, where it will not only serve as a decoy but a warning, as the egg is said to break if it absorbs an attack. Traps. The last type of home protection we will consider is the spirit trap. Almost all cultures have methods for trapping or tangling spirits and spells. In Nepal and Tibet, it is not uncommon to come across thread crosses that are built for this purpose. Threads of 5 colors are wound, representing each of the 5 elements. The threads are then embroidered with pujas and dedicated to specific tent or guardian deities. A similar process is used to demarcate boundaries with a circle made of the same 5 threads. A very popular spell involves burying 9 bittern twigs, also known as devil's shoestring or hodl bush, in your walkway. While doing so, you utter a protective psalm or spell or can whisper a short charm to each one, such as twisted, tangled, hobbled and bound, commit all evil to the ground. Triangles are generally a shape that is believed to trap spirits. There is some evidence to show that the 3-sided shape of the modern tent stake has its origins in Sumerian stakes that were used to nail 105 protection and reversal magic down spirits. This tradition survives in Tibet and India as the famous Furba, or thunder nail, which has made appearances in mainstream movies such as The Shadow, 1994, and The Golden Child, 1986. In the Furba rituals, an effigy called a linga is placed in the center of a triangle that is either drawn on paper or on the ground. Sometimes a triangular iron box is used. The obstacle causing spirits, or dregspa, are then summoned through a series of mantras and mudras 7 and trapped in the triangle, where they are dispatched with the furba. We find a similar use of the triangle in the Gotia, where the spirits are summoned into a triangle that is marked with various holy names such as the Archangel Michael's. The triangle is placed outside of the figure 4.4 triangular spirit trap protective circle, and the evoked spirits are compelled to appear within it and can only be released when the magician is ready. 8 On the cover of this book is a triangular spirit trap that appeared to me during the series of Hykchian workings that inspired many of the spells in this book. The seal may be burned into an appropriate wood such as oak or drawn on paper in dragon's blood ink. However it is made, the symbol should be consecrated with the following ritual. On the new moon, an offering of food to Hecate should be laid out at the nearest crossroads to your home. It is best if a 3-way crossroads is used, but if you can't find one, then 106 protection for the home 4-way will do. Also, if you cannot wait for the new moon because of a serious attack, you should go ahead and do it when your need is greatest. This offering should consist of food sacred to Hecate such as red mullet fish, bread, raw eggs, cheese, garlic, cake, and honey. You can also include herbs such as aconite and dandelion root. Please note that aconite is considered a deadly poison, and should be treated with the conscientiousness that such a substance requires. Invoke Hecate from the heart. Hail many-named Mother of the Gods, whose children are fair. Hail mighty Hecate, Mistress of the Threshold, who walks disheveled and wild through tombs and cremation grounds, cloaked in saffron, clothed with oak leaves and coils of serpents, you who is followed by hordes of ghosts, dogs, and restless spirits. I come to you for aid. I call to thee by thy secret names, Actiophus, Ereshkigal, Nebuchadnezzar. Empower this seal, and make it mighty that it may ensorcel those spirits and cause harm and trouble. May the Empuzi be trapped within it. May the Lamia be trapped within it. May the Mormo be trapped within it. 107 protection and reversal magic. May the Vrigolakas be trapped within it. May the Apotrapaioi be trapped within it. May all manner of spectre, phantoms, and Kakodayamanine be drawn into the triangles forever to live within the confines of the seal. Hecate, Mistress of the Threshold, accept my offering and bless this seal. The seal can then be placed in any and all points of entrance to the home, in doorways or windows, or under floorboards. Let intuition be your guide. If you find that you need to draw a specific spirit into the seal, you can consecrate a fairly large version and take a mullein stalk that has been dipped in oil and place it in the center of the seal, where the 2 inner triangles touch. Light the stalk and, using words of your own choosing that fit the situation, summon the spirit into the seal. Bind it in the names of Actiophus, Ereshkigal, Nabudasulan. With these methods at your disposal, you should have no trouble making your home resistant to magical attacks of almost any kind. Of course, the regular performance of the banishings, meditations, and offerings are actually your main defense. These practices done regularly in the home will impregnate the atmosphere with power, gain you spirit allies, and generally make the home itself a trigger to the mind that you are safe to focus and relax. 108 Chapter 5 Exorcism. The need for an exorcism arises when protection has either failed or has not been employed at all, and hostile intelligences have gained the upper hand and are adversely affecting a person or place. Simpler banishing rituals and blessings have not succeeded in expelling the presence, and so something more must be done. An exorcist expels the presence by virtue of his or her spiritual authority. Indeed, the word exorcism comes from the Greek word exorkizeion and means to bind or adjure by oath. The oaths referred to are the oaths the exorcist has taken in the presence of the gods and by which power he can command the spirits. Generally speaking, exorcism is the solution to one of two problems: possession or obsession. 109. Protection and reversal. Magic possession is the infestation of a person by an invading spirit. Symptoms range from the victim simply feeling the separate presence inside him, to a full displacement of the host personality, where the spirit manifests through the body and voice of the affected. True possession is rare and difficult to deal with. The line between psychological and occult problems is very blurry in this area, and often a combination of both treatments is needed for a full recovery. Obsession is far more common and can be defined as a persistent and intrusive hostile presence that makes itself known through various suggestive means. Obsession can affect a person or place, and the symptoms can range from the simple feeling of an evil presence, to visions and paranoia, to physical phenomena, such as people being pushed downstairs or objects moving on their own. By far the most common complaint in cases of obsession is a weight on the chest while in bed at night, sometimes followed by temporary paralysis. To be clear, cases of obsession are not just hauntings. It is not merely the presence of a neutral spirit or force that is cause for an exorcism, but a spirit or force that is hostile to humans and is working actively to our detriment. Strange and disturbing as a haunting may be to some, they are not attacks and are best handled with offerings, banishings, benedictions, and such. Exorcism of any kind should not be undertaken lightly. Cases of personal possession in particular are best left to experts. Under no circumstances should an exorcism of a possessed person be attempted without exhausting the psychological and medical treatments first. If an exorcism is to be done, it should be coordinated with people in these fields. The fact that most Christian churches require the written approval of a bishop and a heap of evidence before an exorcism is 110 exorcism undertaken should speak to the serious nature of the operation. Churches and individuals that offer exorcism without proper preparation often cause serious damage to their subjects, and one doesn't have to look far to find news reports of abuse and even deaths that occur during exorcisms. Because people undergoing exorcism sometimes react violently, the session should be taped and witnessed by several people. Everyone should know what to do in case of an emergency. Sedation or restraints may be necessary, which of course bring legal issues. People performing exorcisms have been accused of assault, and even murder. The 2005 movie, The Exorcism of Emily Rose, was loosely based upon the case of Anneliese Michel in Germany, and points out some of the dangers inherent in the practice. I cannot stress these points enough, and it is my hope that anyone reading this book who is approached by someone requesting an exorcism and claiming to be possessed takes these warnings into account. In fact, if these points were made to you for the first time while reading this, then you should not attempt an exorcism of a person at all without guidance from a more experienced person in the field. Cases of obsession affecting either person or place are much more common than possession, and it is more likely that you will be confronted with having to perform an exorcism of this type than a genuine possession. While they do not share all the considerations that need to be taken into account that possession cases do, situations of obsession can still be dangerous and should not be taken lightly. Exorcism is accomplished by a battle of wills, and, in order to win, your will must be linked with something beyond your own personal wants and desires. Your will must be identical to the will of the gods. 111 Protection and reversal magic. The will of the gods or the universe is manifesting through you, and you must have complete faith in that in order for the exorcism to be successful. When you speak, your words carry the weight of that will, and through that faith you can command an entity to vacate. It is not enough to believe that you can channel this will, you have to know it. You should not attempt exorcism by yourself. Once, when attempting an exorcism of a house, I began to run a high fever and passed out. An assistant practically carried me out of the house, where we regrouped and went back in. We were eventually successful, but had I been alone, I don't know what would have happened. There should be a contingency plan for every possible situation. Once begun, an exorcism must be carried out until it succeeds, even if this means repeating the ceremony several times over the course of time. If exorcism is begun, and then abandoned completely, the situation can get much worse than it was when you started. After a lot of thought, I have opted not to include a specific ritual for exorcism in this book. Instead, I will give a general outline of what should be done. I have chosen to do it this way because I want to make it very clear that it is not the ritual that will do the job, but the person doing it. The most complex and time-honored rites carried out with theatrical precision will not work at all if the people performing it do not possess knowledge of his or her true will and access to the higher powers. Someone who does possess a combat-ready faith in himself as an agent of the higher powers can perform a very effective exorcism by doing little else than repeatedly telling the demon to go and never return. Anyone ready to perform an exorcism will be able to find or construct a ritual using the following framework as a guide. If you can't put one together, then you aren't ready to perform one. 112 Exorcism. After your team has been assembled, you should gather in the place to be exorcised or around the person to be exorcised, and firmly state what is to be done, that you have gathered to drive out the hostile presence and will do so in the name of the higher powers. Each person should be asked by the leader if he or she is prepared, and if each person answers in the affirmative, you can proceed. This step must not be skipped. Even if everyone has agreed ahead of time that they are going to proceed, some people lose their nerve only when they are about to plunge in. It is here, in the presence of hostility, that each participant must dedicate him or herself to the task at hand. If someone does bail out at this moment, no attempt should be made to convince him or her otherwise. If, after someone answers in the negative, you do not have sufficient people to proceed, you should abandon the rite and begin again when you have more people. Exactly what higher powers you operate under are up to you. It is best if you have a long and established relationship with whatever deities or forces on which you will be relying. Many people suggest that it should be done in the religion you were born into. While I wouldn't go that far, I will say that formal initiation or consecration into a religion helps. Such initiations are actually tangible shields at the spiritual level and can serve you well in case difficulty and danger arise during an exorcism. If you do not possess such initiations, then at the very least you should have a rock-solid relationship with the powers that you are invoking. Though it seems to be very much in vogue to do so these days, under no circumstances should you simply consult a dictionary of gods and goddesses and choose as many as you can find that fit the bill from different pantheons for your exorcism. It's quality not quantity. 113 Protection and reversal magic that does the work here, and calling upon Mars, Marduk, Michael, Ogun, Horus, and Thor all at once will not serve you as well as calling upon just one deity or at least one pantheon with which you have a strong relationship. Whatever power you are relying upon, be it a deity, saint, or Buddha, all present should pray fervently to that power that it may make itself known. Israel, regard I's advice to inflame thyself with prayer is what you should be striving for. Once the presence has been invoked generally, you should petition the power for strength and blessing. You should all feel that you have been made worthy champions by the power that you represent. You must have complete faith in this. It is sometimes helpful to call upon especially martial spirits or forms of the power with which you are working. As an example, in the Judeo-Christian context, after invoking God, it would be appropriate to invoke the angel Michael or Saint George. In a Buddhist context, after invoking the gurus and Buddhas, a wrathful idam such as Vajrakilaya or Hayagriva would be called upon. A Strega who is calling upon Diana might then invoke the presence of Aradhya or even a more wrathful goddess that Diana is connected with, such as Artemis. A general address to all evil and ill can now be made. Do not focus on the specific malefic force yet, but rather command all evil and ill to abandon the person or place that is being exorcised. Do this repeatedly and in the name of the power that you have invoked. An exorcism is not the time to worry about being politically correct, so don't shy away from using words such as evil, unclean, and demon. Such words help in working in your own power up to a fever pitch and clearly define that the time for bargaining and making peace is over. The goal of the exorcism is destruction or removal of the hostile entity, nothing else. 114 Exorcism. Now it is time to address the troublesome entity by name. Begin simply enough by asking what name you can call it. Demand to know. Command it to tell you. In cases of possession, it is possible, though not a guarantee, that the entity will speak through the possessed and you can converse with the intruder as you would the person in front of you. In cases of obsession, the obsessed person may hear the name spoken. It is also possible that you or a sensitive in your group will hear the name spoken, either in the air or in your head. You should not try to divine the name of the entity using a talking board or similar device. Such tools give spirits a stronger foothold in the material plane and are meant only for friendly communication, which you are well beyond if you are performing an exorcism. Do not linger too long on trying to get the entity's name. Keep the ceremony moving on the offense. If you cannot perceive the entity's name, you should name it. This can be done on the spot or beforehand. The actual name matters little, and you should rely on your own inspiration when looking for a name. The idea of assigning a name brings the entity into the human sphere, making it easier to confront. You can say something along the lines of, because you will not name yourself in a manner that we can understand, I shall name you myself. By the power of _______________________ I name thee _______________________ Thou art __________________________________________ Once the offender is named, you should address it directly by the name. Adjure it in the name of your gods. Command it to leave. Be steady in the knowledge that you have the authority to do so. Doubts 115 Protection and reversal magic may occur in your mind. This is the entity battling you in your own psyche. Know that the laws of light and life are on your side. This is the only way to win. Sometimes you will feel a sudden lightness in the air, and there will be general agreement that the entity has been exorcised. Sometimes, especially with weaker presences, it is hard to tell. A good way to bring the climax to a close is to write the name of the entity on a piece of paper and place it in a triangle. The triangle can be plain or sealed, such as the one used in the Gotia or the Hekudian spirit trap that I presented in the last chapter. Whatever you use, the triangle should not be paper, as it will have to withstand the burning of the paper with the name on it. Adjure the demon in the name of fire, and light the name paper. Adjure the demon in the name of water, and lustrate whatever is left. Adjure the demon in the name of earth, and throw salt at the ashes. Adjure the demon in the name of air, and blow the remains away with your breath. Trace an equal arm cross in the air and adjure the demon in the name of the gods and powers invoked during the ritual. Declare the spirit exorcised, expelled, and banished to such an extent that not even its name exists. Sweep up the ashes of the name paper and take them out of the building immediately. Eventually you can dump them in a river, scatter them to the wind, or bury them at a crossroads. Whether you end with the burning of a name paper or not, at the end of the rite you should thank the powers that were invoked and take a few moments to praise them. Banish the wound immediately and place up protective wards and amulets such as the ones discussed in the previous chapters, both in the 116 exorcism building that was used for the exorcism and on the victims. It is a good idea for all to take protective and purifying baths a few days after the exorcism and to use a floor wash on the rooms involved. Traditionally, incense is used during the exorcism, and you should feel free to use one of the recipes from Chapter 5 or any sharp-smelling incense that you like. Avoid herbs such as dittany of Crete and mullein, which are used as materializing incenses. The person or place that was the target of the exorcism should be monitored for several weeks, and they should be instructed to record any strange occurrences or relapse with symptoms. It is not uncommon for an exorcism to have to be performed more than once, and you may need to repeat the process 3 or more times. I strongly recommend videotaping or at least making an audio tape of the ritual, and I would like to again reiterate my advice that cases where a person is possessed are to be treated with the utmost care. They should be handled by an expert and in cooperation with medical and mental health professionals. 117 blank page Chapter 6 Spirit Guardians and Servitors. Throughout the book we have been talking about spirits, both in terms of being sources of potential attack and also their employment and strategies of defense. Before moving forward, I wanted to take a moment and talk about the nature of spirits and magic in general. Because so much of what the magicians and witches deal with is invisible to the untrained eye, it is tempting for many people to try to find psychological explanations for traditional aspects of magic. In this view, spells aren't aimed at actually making changes in the outside world, but rather for self-empowerment. Spirits are not viewed as discarnate intelligences, but as aspects or projections of the mind. In his article, Is Wicca Under a Spell? One Carl McCallum quotes Australian sociologist Douglas Asey regarding the effect of spells themselves. 119. Protection and reversal magic. Spell books encourage individuals to take control of their lives through self-exploration and self-affirmation. Furthermore, performing magical spells functions as a way of rediscovering the enchanted and mysterious aspects of life. McCallum further interprets this. In other words, spells are more than just magical recipes for getting your own way. They are miniature rituals designed to foster a sense of mystery and wonder, what Asey calls enchantment, in everyday life, and to evoke a positive sense of power and hope in the spellcaster's life. Even if casting a spell doesn't make you rich or win you love, it could give you hope that such blessings really are possible in your life. Thus, a spell to help you get a job will perhaps build your confidence, but not affect the mind of the interviewer or the hiring process directly. The claim is that the magic is providing mystery, wonder, and self-affirmation, and the hope that you can achieve the spell's end. This is all very wonderful, and indeed magic can provide all these things, but it is clear that magicians and witches throughout history expected more from their spells than that with Arctic ritual, and I stand with them. Bantu spirits, too, are seen by many respected magicians in the modern day as little more than psychological projections. Even the spirits in the ancient grimoires such as the Gotia, the oldest of the books in the Lemegeton 3, are given this treatment by modern writers. Lon Milo 120 Spirit Guardians and Servitors Duquette in his essay, Demons Are Our Friends, states, like it or not, we all come hardwired with a complete set, 12 six-packs of Gothic demons. In this attitude, he is following the lead of no less authority than Aleister Crowley himself, who wrote in his introduction to his translation of the Book of the Gotia of Solomon, the King, that the spirits of the Gotia are portions of that human brain. While I respect the writings of both of these magicians greatly, I must disagree. My experience is that while certain spirits seem to be able to interface with our brains and speak to us through them, they are not limited by this and can act in ways that are far outside the realm of being portions of the human brain. But just as the perception of the ordinary person is limited by his or her lack of belief in spirits and magic, so the perception of many magicians and witches is limited by their psychologically oriented views. These views sometimes carry over into the conjuration itself. Once, when planning a Gothic evocation of the spirit Vasego at Felisa's camp in Philadelphia, for where I would have been the evoking magician and a sister of the group would have been the scryer, someone in the group became very concerned over whose Vasego we would be summoning into the triangle, mine or the scryer's. When I explained that we were looking at this traditionally and that Vasego was Vasego and not just a part of someone's psyche thrown into a scrying mirror, he looked deeply concerned about my sanity. This type of thinking will place severe limitations on the ceremony itself, and likely reduce it to the purely psychological event that people are expecting. Whatever your view on the spirits, it is clear that old grimoires were written for their rituals to be performed as if the spirit were a 121 protection and reversal magic separate, discarnate intelligence, and not just a part of your brain. Even if you think that the spirit is a part of your psyche, and the ceremony works by your own belief, it follows that if you treat the spirit as a separate entity that you are summoning, you will be able to get more worked up over the process, and if you go into it as some psychological trick, and thus achieve greater success no matter what the spirit's true nature. In my practice, experience has led me to embrace the more traditional view of spirits, that where there is space, there is awareness, and this awareness manifests as varying classes of beings possessing different natures and powers. Some are localized, some are not. Some can only speak to you using information in your mind to express themselves. Some can speak to you as clearly as if they were a person standing in front of you. Some have influence over the material world, some do not. Whatever your personal views and beliefs on the subject, I encourage you to treat them in ritual according to this traditional view, as that is what experience has taught me yields the best results. Besides, as one of my magical mentors Cliff Pollock once told me, there is nothing like getting bitten on the ass by something that you didn't quite believe in. If and when that happens, you may find you need this book more than you thought. Guardian spirits, just as spirits can sometimes cause harm, so can they defend against it. The practice of invoking gods and spirits for aid is common in almost all religions, and one doesn't need training in witchcraft to pray for help. While general prayer can sometimes be effective, remarkably so in some cases, the sorcerer will want to employ some 122 spirit guardians and serve surer methods of defense than just leaving a situation in the hands of the gods. Thus we seek to develop a relationship with various guardian spirits, and to learn the methods whereby they are summoned and convinced to aid us. In most magical worldviews, there are very powerful, or even omnipotent, deities that are an object of veneration or worship. These beings are typically seen as being somewhat removed from the physical world and thus not very in touch with the goings-on of everyday life. Because of this distance between the gods and man, there are often sets of spirits that are petitioned for aid with material problems and are thought to be more likely to intercede in our affairs than the high gods. We have already touched upon the defensive use of the spirits of departed humans through the agency of their graveyard dust in a previous chapter, but there are other types of spirits that can be employed by the cunning magician. In Tibet, for instance, there are beings known as Dharmapalas, most of whom were spirits in Tibet that received blood sacrifices before Buddhism was brought to the land of snows in the 8th century. Because they knew that Buddhists were against animal sacrifice, they caused many problems for the king of Tibet, who was trying to build a monastery and establish Buddhism. The magician Padmasambhava was called upon to travel through Tibet and tame these spirits. Because these spirits were very connected to the material plane, he pressed many of them into service as guardian spirits, and promised that they would be offered tormas, cakes, that would replace the blood sacrifices to which they were accustomed. To this day, Tibetan Buddhists offer cakes that are shaped and colored like bloody heads and such to appease these DHARMAPALAS.5 protection and reversal magic in Catholicism and Catholic-influenced magic such as hoodoo. We have angels and saints interceding, which are seen as more effective than calling upon God himself, because, like the Dharmapalas, they are more connected to the material plane and to the human experience. In Vodou, the Loa serve the same function, most of whom were human ancestors that have been elevated to a higher level and now serve the community. It is well known that European witches have called upon all sorts of familiar spirits for aid, and have a long history of dealing with spirits such as the Fae inside. The medieval grimoires of ceremonial magic, which were written primarily for use by Christian clergy, are filled with catalogs of spirits that were known to be fast and powerful in fulfilling the requests of the magicians who evoked them. Because these spirits are not as removed from the human condition as the high deities, they are also not as enlightened and thus can sometimes be dangerous to work with, and so they must be treated with a firm hand. In the case of Tibet, although the Dharmapalas are oath-bound, there are retinues of spirits that serve each one, some of whom are considered drekpa, which means that they are arrogant and easily offended. Because of this, whenever the Dharmapalas are evoked in ritual, the person doing it takes the god form of a powerful enlightened Buddhist god called an Idam. Usually this Idam is itself very fearsome in appearance and is therefore threatening to the lower spirits. In the grimoires, we see similar tactics used for binding the demons that can sometimes get unruly. In this case, the various names of God are invoked, and the demon, which is often secretly a pagan deity in disguise, is forced into appearing in a comely form and behaving politely. 124 spirit guardians and servitors. Often, these conjurations and bindings are issued in an increasingly more dire and threatening order. The Gaudiya even goes so far as to suggest placing the spirit's sigil inside a box and burning it if the spirit refuses to appear. Whatever tradition you come from, the spirits are generally called upon via some symbol or sound that is connected with them. In the East, a mantra is most often assigned to a guardian, and someone wanting to invoke the protection of a particular spirit might meditate on the spirit's mantra repeatedly. It would not be uncommon to recite a mantra 10,000 or more times in order to request the aid of a Dharmapala. In the West, spirits are more often connected with sigil than with mantras, though the name of the spirits is also a powerful link. The word sigil comes from the Latin sigillum and can be translated as a seal or signature. The seal of a spirit is not only its signature, though, but its phone number and address rolled into one. In some cases, the seal of a spirit is synonymous with the spirit itself, and thus the presence of a spirit exists wherever its seal is present. The methods of obtaining sigil for spirits vary widely. In some cases, the seal is a combination of letters, often the spirit's name, bound together so that the individual letters are all present but not immediately apparent. In some cases, a spirit's name can be traced on a tablet, such as the Golden Dawn's Rose Cross Layman and the Agrippa's planetary cameos. In the case of the latter, the numbers of the magical squares that make the cameos are assigned letters according to Hebrew, and the sigil is traced using a circle to mark its beginning and a line to mark its end. 125 protection and reversal magic. Some sigil are more pictographic, such as the vivs of Haitian Vodou. For example, Papa Legba's viv contains a crossroads and a cane, Berjouli's is a heart, and Grandbois' viv looks like a tree person. Each of these vivs conveys something of that particular Loa's nature and iconography, executed in an artistic style heavily influenced by French ironwork. Some of the seals in the Greater Key of Solomon and the Black Pullets are also very picture-oriented and may even have very blatant pictures of rings and people contained within them. There are also cases where sigil is revealed directly by a spirit or god. When received clearly, without too much intrusion from the receiver's conscious mind, these are the most powerful sigil, especially if you were the one to whom the sigil was revealed. Automatic writing, scrying, and oniric sorcery are the most common modes by which these sigil are obtained from the spirits, and can be employed by you to whatever extent your talent allows. There are a number of different ways with which the sigil of a spirit can be worked. Sometimes they are worn as talismans or placed in the home, and the name of the spirit and any associated prayers or conjurations that are traditional are spoken while contemplating the seal. Other methods involve making offerings to the sigil, such as would be the case with the aforementioned thieves. As I write this, I have a candle in front of me that has the Vive of Papa Legba painted on it in red. Before I began writing today, I laid a glass of rum in front of the candle and called Papa by one of his songs, and then asked him to clear the obstacles that often arise during the day that interrupt my writing. In exchange for his service, I will offer him a coconut and more rum later, as well as is mentioned in the book, in order to increase his renown. 126 Spirit Guardians and Servitors. If you choose to call upon a traditional spirit from an established magical system, you should make every endeavor to reasonably follow the protocols of that system. This is particularly important in approaching spirits from traditions that still have a very active and traditional cult that has not had to be reconstructed, such as Vodou, Santeria, Buddhism, and shamanism. Do not assume that the spirits will be cooperative and understanding if you approach them in the wrong way. If the spirit requires offerings, make sure those offerings are consistent with its nature. If the tradition requires that you be initiated to a certain level before approaching that spirit, I strongly recommend that you undergo that initiation before asking it for aid. At the very least, you should consult someone who has a background in that tradition or has dealt with that spirit before. Eclecticism is all well and good, but it must be done with intelligence and respect. As an example of how this kind of thing can go horribly wrong, a witch in New York who I am acquainted with decided to invoke the aid of the Orishas after reading only a book or two on Santeria. He didn't know much of Santerian ritual structure, so he used a format similar to that of ceremonial magic and evoked Orishas into the four quarters according to their elemental attributions. In the West, he invoked Imaya, as she is a goddess of the ocean, and West is associated with the element water. In the North, he invoked Oya, who is associated with mountains and thunder, and also the grave, which seemed a perfect fit for the quarter associated with the element earth. The problem is that in the Yoruban traditions, these two goddesses hate each other because Imaya tricked Oya into trading dominion over the ocean for dominion over the grave. Most Vatanikas won't even put their candles on the same shelf. This unwise individual began to see signs of the 127 protection and reversal magic heavy cross conditions that he brought on himself almost immediately. He eventually lost his job and suffered many health problems until he finally got a trained Santero to intervene for him. This kind of problem doesn't only exist in African-derived magic. I am aware of a similar problem that was caused by an American who was initiated into the practice of two Dharmapalas that conflicted, Dora Shudden and Ikejati. Ikejati is a 9-6 Dharmapala, and Shudden is from a small sect within the Gelugpa school. The spirit Dora Shudden is so sectarian that the Dalai Lama has asked everyone in the Gelugpa school to stop propitiating him. Unfortunately, he is known for being very quick-acting in material matters, and so some sects still give his initiation. The American in question had to undergo a long process to be free from the influence of Shudden, a spirit that she had no idea was hostile to the other schools. If you choose not to work with a spirit from an established tradition, there are many ways to contact spirits yourself, from which you can then get names and sigil. If you are diligent with your offering rituals, such as those provided in the Chapter 2, you may notice certain presences hanging around, and you can reach out to these beings and ask if they are willing to work as protective spirits for you. How exactly you do this depends largely upon your own talents and the capability of the spirit involved. Some people will be able to establish direct contact psychically. Some will need to rely upon divination for the answers. Sometimes a question asked during the day will be answered in a dream or when you are hovering between being asleep and awake and thus more sensitive to the influences of the invisible. Trance states can also be induced by overbreathing, meditation, self-hypnosis, chemicals, or any combination thereof. 128 spirit guardians and servitors. Certain people, ceremonial magicians especially, would recommend strongly against contacting whatever spirits show up at your offerings or are just hovering about the landscape, writing it off as ignorant spiritualism. Their argument is that the spirits in the Grimoires have been evoked successfully for many years and their natures are already known, whereas whatever is lurking around the corner could be dangerous and is, at the very least, not to be trusted. While I respect the fact that many people feel this way, I don't find the argument to hold much water. For one thing, many of the spirits in the Grimoires that magicians like to use have natures that are anything but friendly and ready to serve. If you are going to go so far as to burn a sigil and ostensibly torture a spirit listed in the Grimoire because it is so reluctant to appear, how much less cooperative could the local spirit be? As for trust, while I agree that it's dangerous to trust local spirits blindly, I think it's dangerous to trust anyone blindly. There are many spirits in the Grimoires that are devious by nature. The goatee warns about the spirit beareth, for instance, as a spirit that is not to be trusted no matter what bindings you place on him. How much worse could you do on your own, talking to what appears at your offerings or in your local places of power? The last hole in this argument is that these Grimoires and spirits were contacted by somebody else first. Someone divined the name and seal, and then wrote the Grimoire. That's not very different from working with various unknown spirits. Sticking to only those spirits that are in the Grimoires or known traditions is somewhat like sticking with people listed in a Who's Who guide for all your friends. I wouldn't do that, would you? 129 Protection and Reversal Magic. Another way to contact a protective spirit is to pray and ask the gods to send one to you. Certain spirits and angels can also put you into contact with familiar spirits from the legions that they rule over. The aforementioned Gotia, for example, promises that many spirits such as Marax, Malfaz, Sabnok, Shax, and Alexal give good familiars when asked. The spirits invoked in the banishing ritual from the second chapter, Abiak, Parham, Urmidi, and Dinkali, all were revealed to me directly by asking EK to send protective spirits. There are seals and further rituals for each of them, but that will have to wait for a future book. In the meantime, they can be visualized and called upon either individually or as a group, according to the formula given in the banishing ritual. In the chapter on home protection, I touched a bit on amulets that represent a fierce presence to scare away spirits such as the Garuda door amulets of Nepal and Tibet, the devil or bat nut of American hoodoo, and the European gargoyle. Each of these items has the AP parents of some kind of wrathful being that is dedicated to protecting the location in which they are set. As with so many amulets, their magical potency is derived from their appearance, and it is believed that their form alone is enough to make them effective. They can be used as is, or they can be awakened through energized prayer and spell work, but in general the item is not believed to be a spirit in and of itself. There are rites, however, wherein a spirit can be called to an object, which can be placed as a guardian in the home or even worn on the person. The idea that spirits can inhabit physical objects is an old one, and goes back to the earliest prehistoric shamanic practices. Binding a spirit to an object either temporarily or permanently has the benefit of 130 spirit guardians and servitors, giving a spirit a foothold in the material plane, and also provides an easy way for you to contact the spirit to give it instructions and make offerings to it. Some people are uncomfortable with the idea of binding spirits to objects, thinking that it traps the spirit against its will, but this isn't necessarily the case. The nature of spirits is sometimes said to be like fire, and like a flame it can spread from one lamp to another without diminishing the flame from which it was taken. This explains why spirits, such as the 4 archangels, can be called upon effectively by multiple people at multiple times, and why objects such as idols and seals are treated as if they are inseparable from the spirit itself, even if multiple objects exist. Of course, there are cases where the spirits are thought to be trapped in their entirety by very powerful sorcerers, such as when King Solomon supposedly bound up the 72 demons of the Gotia in a vessel of brass, and when the 5th Dalai Lama did the same to Dora Shuden. In both of these cases, though, the spirits were later released by a less proficient mix. Objects such as the gargoyle, devil nut, and Garuda all make excellent objects in which spirits can be placed. Paul Hewson, in his excellent book Mastering Witchcraft, gives a ritual whereby a spirit, or Magistilis, Latin for little master, is attracted into a mandrake root or an auron and made to serve as a guardian of the hearth. The mandrake, or mandragora, gets its name because the root resembles a human form, whereas an auron is a humanoid figure carved from rowan wood. More complex spirit houses can also be made, such as the Palerosengaingla, which often takes the form of a cauldron with various objects, such as machetes and sacred woods, in it that assist the inhabiting spirit. 131 Protection and Reversal Magic. The following ritual is for the creation of a spirit house that will serve as home to the spirit Apoxius, who is another protective spirit that was revealed to me by Kate. Apoxius appeared to me in the shape of a man with mirrored eyes, and dark greenish-black skin. He carried a bell in one hand and a long razor-sharp sword in the other. He is charged by Kate with standing guard over anyone who is unjustly attacked and is an excellent watchman and guard. His spirit house should be made from a bottle that is colored dark green. 7. The bottle should be exorcised with incense and salt water before beginning. The bottle should be filled with dirt from the following places in the following order. 1. Dirt from a cemetery, not from a particular grave, just from the ground. 2. Dirt from a police station. 3. Dirt from a bank. 4. Dirt from a church or temple or Masonic hall. You get the idea. 5. Dirt from a government building. 6. Dirt from the mountains or the highest ground around. 7. Dirt from the shore of a lake or the beach. 8. Dirt from a store. 9. Dirt from a crossroads. 132 spirit guardians and servitors. The dirt from all these places should be from as close to your home as possible. You only need a little from each place, and the bottle should only be half full when you are finished. Next, add the following items to the bottle. 1. Oak twigs. 2. Pine needles. 3. Blackthorn. 4. Aconite. 5. Poppy seeds. 6. Black mustard seeds. 7. The hair of a black dog. 8. 3 razor blades. 9. A small bell. The oak is for protection. The pine needles are for cleansing. The blackthorn is for tangling up obstructions. The aconite is poison and is also sacred to Kate. The poppy seeds cause confusion, and the black mustard seeds cause harm to enemies. The hair of a black dog is also sacred to Kate, and grants Apoxius to canine spirits that can track and hunt down offending presences. The razor blades symbolize the spirit's sword, and the bell represents the spirit's bell with which he simultaneously warns of attack and confuses his enemies. On the outside of the bottle, you should paste 4 mirrors to face the 4 directions. These simultaneously represent the eyes of the spirit and his ability to reverse harm back upon the sender. A small chain and padlock can be added to the outside to represent chains with which to bind your enemies. 133 Protection and Reversal Magic. Finally, you should prepare his seal on parchment but keep it outside the bottle for now. Figure 6.1 Seal of Apoxius. If you can perform the rite on a new moon at a 3-way crossroads, that is best. If not, then you can perform it in your home or someplace else that you find powerful. Wherever you decide to perform it, the ceremony must be performed on a new moon. Begin by laying out a supper to Kate such as was described for charging a spirit trap. It should include foods sacred to Kate such as red mullet fish, bread, raw eggs, cheese, garlic, cake, and honey. You can also include herbs such as aconite and dandelion root as garnish. You should perform a banishing, such as the one from the chapter 2 or another formula of your choosing. After the banishing, sit for a moment in silence. When you feel that you have entered into a receptive state, you should light some incense sacred to PHYCHIC, such as a blend of myrrh, mugwort, and mullein. Call to PHYCHIC using the following incantation while staring intently at the seal of Apoxius. 134 spirit guardians and servitors hail, many named Mother of the Gods, whose children are fair, hail mighty PHYCHIC, mistress of the threshold, who walks disheveled and wild through tombs and cremation grounds cloaked in saffron, clothed with oak leaves and coils of serpents, you who is followed by hordes of ghosts, dogs, and restless spirits, I come to you for aid. I call to thee by thy sacred names, Actiophus, Ereshkigal, Nebotosiu Aleph mighty PHYCHIC, send your angel Apoxius to inhabit this house. May he dwell within it and find all his weapons waiting. May he stand guard over my home, my family, and all those I love and hold dear. May he stand firm against the powers and principalities of evil. May he turn back the tides of invading demons. May he drive out those who conspire against me. May he hunt down the attackers where they dwell and bring the battle to their door. Hail, many named Mother of the Gods, whose children are fair. 135 protection and reversal magic. Hail mighty PHYCHIC, mistress of the threshold, send to me your spirit this night. At this point you should focus intently on the seal of Apoxius. Hold the seal over the incense smoke and chant the following charm at least 100 times, 100 being ECAD, to bring him through his seal. IOAPOXISIO ho. EOAPOHKSEISEO ho. At some point you will feel the presence of the spirit enter the seal. This feeling differs according to our individual gifts and capacities, but can range from a simple feeling of not being alone, to the sensation of many invisible doors opening all at once, to something visible such as the lines of the sigil suddenly moving or seeming to appear in 3D. Even if you receive the sign of his presence immediately, you should complete the 100 recitations as an offering and way to affirm his presence. If you don't receive the sign, you should continue reciting until you do. When you are done, you should place the sigil inside the bottle and close it up. Burn a black candle on top of the bottle, and in your own words thank PHYCHIC and Apoxius for heeding your call. Place the bottle on your altar or on a shelf in your home. Every new moon you should burn some incense as an offering to the spirit and pray to him in your own words to continue protecting your home, family, and friends. You should also pay attention to omens and dreams, as well as anyone acting out of sorts around you. Apoxius is very good at making people 136 spirit guardians and servitors with secret plans against you show their hands before they are ready to play them. He is also a very fierce protector, so those witches who believe in taking a very light-handed approach to defense, and would rather endure harm than risk harming an attacker themselves, should avoid this spirit entirely. Apoxius is not a pacifist. As a last word, when dealing with spirits of any type, you should be aware that you are opening your life up to relationships with the other worlds. Like all relationships, it works two ways. The spirits will come when you call, but don't be surprised if they start calling you back on their own. Magic happens everywhere, not just within the confines of a circle. This relationship is a blessing, and is the only way to learn the magic that can't be taught in books, but those not ready to handle this should avoid working with the spirits at all. Artificial spirits, apart from the use of spirits and intelligences that are attracted to the witch through conjuration or offering, there are also methods for creating artificial spirits. An artificial spirit is made from energy that is shaped and programmed by the witch, much like an artificial intelligence computer program. They are created for long and short-term use and are known by many names. In traditional European witchcraft, an artificial is sometimes known as a fetch or but-will. In ceremonial magic, they are often called egregores, or when constructed from one or more of the four elements, artificial elementals. 137 Protection and Reversal Magic. One of the most famous examples of a magician creating a spirit for defense is the golem. In the year 1580, a Kabbalist named Rabbi Loeb is rumored to have created an artificial spirit that inhabited and animated a physical form called a golem. A Catholic priest named Tadush was planning to accuse the Jews of Prague of ritual murder, which would start a backlash against the Jewish community that would result in many deaths. Rabbi Loeb heard about it, and, to avert the danger, directed a dream question to heaven to help him save his people. He received his answer in a Hebrew code, 88 Golem Diver Kakamar Vitik Zarzetim Shekel Torfi Israel. The literal meaning of this is, make a golem of clay, and you will destroy the entire anti-Semitic community. Through the geometric interpretation of this phrase, the rabbi was able to decipher the actual formula for doing just that. The golem was giving life by writing one of the names of God, E-M-E-T-H, on its head. Stories vary about how the golem accomplished his task. Some say it went berserk and had to be destroyed. Some say that it only killed the priest and was then put to rest. The golem was deactivated by wiping off the E from the name on its forehead to change it from E-M-E-T-H to Meth, which means dead in Hebrew. The golem's body was sealed in a secret passage in a synagogue where it is said to remain to this day. Some believe this story was the inspiration for the Mary Shelley classic Frankenstein. Another famous story involving the creation of an artificial spirit comes to us through Alexandria. David Neal, the French explorer and author who penetrated Tibet in the 1920s and traveled the country disguised as a beggar and a lama. In her book Magick and Mystery in Tibet 9, she describes her creation of an artificial spirit called a talpa, which roughly translates to mind emanation in Tibetan. In her story, she seals herself up in a cave and concentrates on creating a short, 138 spirit guardians and servitors good-natured monk. After a few weeks, she feels that her monk is sufficiently manifest and she leaves the cave. The Tulpa monk follows her on her travels and is even seen by other members of her traveling party from time to time. The problems arise when the monk begins changing out of her control. His appearance shifts from being portly and good-natured to being gaunt and sinister. Realizing that her Kriyat Ion has gotten away from her, she decides to dismantle the monk, but only accomplishes this at great effort over the course of several months. 10. There is even one case where an artificial spirit is treated as one of the chiefs of a whole magical order. The Fraternitas Urniae in Germany at one time regarded an egregore named Godos, acronym for Gradus Ordinis Templiarientis Urniae, as a secret chief. This egregore was fed into by everyone in the order and thus was somewhat of a group mind that could then be called upon to advise the order with the weight of its collected wisdom. In the late 1980s, the use of artificial spirits became extremely popular amongst people interested in chaos magic, where the spirits are generally known as servitors. Whatever you want to call them, their construction and use is more or less the same. First, you must decide upon the function you wish it to perform. In our case, we are concerned with magical defense and protection, but they can be made for almost any purpose. In general, artificial spirits are meant to be temporary, and are designed to dissipate upon the completion of their task or upon a certain date. Permanent servitors can be constructed, but must be carefully looked after and fed with energy to keep them in line, lest they begin to take their nourishment, and thus their programming, from elsewhere, as with the case of the runaway tulpa mentioned previously. 139 Protection and Reversal Magic before construction. Decide upon a form. The form is limited only by imagination and should, in some way, indicate its function. A servitor made to warn of danger, for instance, could take the shape of a cloud of eyes and ears, and a servitor meant to guard a door could take the form of a knight in armor. Whatever you choose, you should be aware that the servitor may take on the characteristics of its form. If you want a servitor to charge into a battle, don't make it cute and cuddly. Similarly, if you are afraid of causing harm in your response to danger, do not make it into the form of a bear. You should then decide on a name and sigil that will represent the servitor. The name should represent its function in some way. If you do want a name that will indicate its function, you can choose one word and jumble the letters or pick a combination of words that you condense. The word protector, for instance, could be made into the name Rectoport, and the words binder of harm can be made into the name binder ham by removing the word of and the repeating letter R from harm. An artificial spirit created primarily from an elemental or planetary force can be named with a word that recalls that force. Matim, for instance, is the Hebrew name for Mars and could be used as a name for a servitor made with energy emanating from that planetary sphere. Of course, if you feel inspired to name it something else, go right ahead. A friend of mine named his protective servitor Phil, and claims great success with him. A sigil can be constructed from one of the previously described methods, such as by combining letters into a symbol wherein the individual letters are not immediately apparent. You can also trace a sigil upon the camels or rose cross layman if you know how. You can also make a chart of your own construction and trace a sigil on it. For 140 spirit guardians and servitors example, you can make a 5 multiplication 5 graph and fill it in with English letters according to your own inspiration, using I to also represent the letter J as it does in Latin. The following methods could be used to make sigil for a servitor named Binder Ham. QYNLBCPETHKODIZUWRFSMXG figure 6.1. Letter chart QYNLBCPETVHKAODIZUWRFSMXG figure 6.2. Sigil traced on letter chart figure 6.3. Combined letter sigil 141. Protection and reversal magic. Though it's not strictly necessary, I find it useful to write the name and sigil of the spirit on a piece of paper. This paper forms a magical link and home for the spirit and can be used to feed the servitor and issue further instructions. The spirit's orders and other symbols appropriate to the working can be added to the paper as well, as can oils and powders consistent with the nature of the spirit. If you are planning to keep the spirit around long term, you can engrave the sigil and name onto a statue or other object that will then serve as a powerful guardian. To actually construct the spirit, you have to set a place a few feet in front of you where the spirit will manifest. I always place a triangle in this spot to help the manifestation of the spirit, and if you are using a paper or other object to serve as a connection to the spirit, then you can place it in the spot where the spirit will manifest. You should banish the space that you are working in or set up circle according to whatever methods you normally use. Begin by drawing whatever type of energy you will be using into yourself. The conjuring of the column using the Disendat Columba, Asendat Serpens formula it was given in Chapter 2 is one way to accomplish this and draw upon energy in general. Elemental pour breath in, wherein the body is seen as empty and an elemental force is drawn in through the pores of the body was covered in the section on shields, and can be used here as well. Earth may be chosen for providing protection, water for smoothing over tense situations and engendering understanding, and so forth for fire and air. The forces of the planets can be breathed into the body as well by performing the ritual during the proper planetary day and hour while 142 spirit guardians and servitors concentrating on the colors and symbols of the planet. 11 Sexual energy can be built up and used for this purpose as well, but is a bit more complex and isn't the best to use for protective purposes. A full description of this technique will have to wait for another book. When the body is filled with force, you should set your gaze upon the space set aside for the spirit to manifest within. You must now eject the force through your navel and see it shoot from you and form a cloud in front of you. Through force of will, command the cloud of energy to take the shape that you have determined ahead of time. The more detail you put into this, the better the spirit will manifest. If you are very talented at visualizing, you can even go so far as to imagine the energy taking the form of microscopic versions of the spirit sigil, which then form the cells of the being and eventually coalesce into the form of the servitor. If you have limited powers of visualization, you must work to the best of your ability. Once you see the spirit in front of you, it is time to cut the connection, name it, and give it its orders. A simple, I name you, underscore, 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 you are, underscore, 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 will suffice for the naming. Its orders should likewise be succinct and to the point. If the spirit is meant for temporary use, you must give it an order to dissipate at a future time whether it has accomplished its task or not. It is better to use an astronomical event to mark time with spirits than it is to use a calendar date. The next equinox, the new moon, or when the sun moves into a new sign are all examples that would work. If you are planning to keep the server around permanently, you should be vigilant in feeding it on energy and reinforcing its programming at regular intervals. 143 Protection and reversal magic. After you have issued it orders, command it to depart and carry them out. If you are binding the spirit to an object, you can see the servitor sink into the object. If you are not binding it, then simply see the servitor fly off to carry out its mission. The potential uses of servitors and the methods of their construction are endless, and the reason I have a ritual outline instead of a script is that this form of magic is so wonderfully imaginative that everyone should develop their own techniques. The benefit of using servitors as opposed to a pre-existing entity lies in its complete obedience to your will. You are its creator and master. This is also its flaw, as a pre-existing spirit can occasionally find ways to assist you that you would never even think of. In either case, the use of spirits for defense is often necessary in the event of a full-blown magical attack. Amulets and banishing rituals are great at preventing harm, but can eventually be circumvented by a cunning enough technique. Spirits, artificial or not, are often used in launching attacks because of their ability to adapt to defenses and get past them. If you think that an artificial spirit has been sent against you by someone else, you can combat it in a number of ways. Some artificial spirits are nothing more than forms projected by a creator without any other type of energy put into them at all. In this case, you can destroy them by thinking them away. It's that simple. Just imagine them being obliterated. From mind they came and by mind they go. If you banish and visualize them away, yet they resist, you have got another problem. In the case of an artificial elemental, you can fight it off or destroy it by trapping it in a triangle, such as the Hecudian spirit trap, and 144 spirit guardians and servitors attacking it with the opposing element and associated weapons. One can also begin to feed it the element that it is made out of, thus making it stronger but infusing it with your will in an attempt to usurp control. This is slightly more dangerous, but has its advantages. If you are successful in taking over an artificial spirit, it is a powerful magical link to a potentially unknown attacker. It's difficult, and should only be attempted by experienced practitioners, but may prove to be easier than getting hair and fingernail clippings. In fact, there are plenty of cases where spirits that were sent to attack someone were usurped by the victim and turned upon the attacker. This is either done through making greater offerings to the spirit, binding the spirit as you would in an exorcism, or appealing to the spirit's nature. I have been told of instances in Haiti where evoker, sorcerer, sent one of the barons, Moi, who was associated with death and the graveyard, amongst other things, against another booker. The targeted sorcerer made prayers to the same baron, and basically left it up to the baron to decide who was justified in his case. In the end, it was the first booker, the one who initiated the attack, who was taken to the grave. This technique of forcing the spirit to choose between two victims in the hopes that the unjustified person will be killed is also seen in the Pulsiganura, or Lashes of Fire curse, which was mentioned in an earlier chapter. This curse is performed in a cemetery and invokes the angel of death, asking him to kill a named victim or kill the person performing the curse. It is up to the angel to decide who deserves death. The curse was used on October 6, 1995, by the Israeli politician Avigdor Eskin against Yitzhak Rabin in response to the Oslo Accords. Rabin was assassinated within a month. More recently, the curse was used against Ariel Sharon, and at the time of this writing Ariel Sharon lies in a coma that most believe he will never recover from. 145 Protection and reversal magic using such techniques is obviously dangerous and advanced work, but I mention them for the sake of completeness. It is up to you to decide what you are ready to use and when. In general, you will be better served by using the defensive techniques already mentioned and the methods of reversal and counter magic that I will teach in the next chapter. 146 Chapter 7 Reversals and Counter Magic. If you are vigilant in your banishings, use protective amulets, and have strong guardians. Even if someone were to lay a curse directly on you, it is likely that you would probably not even notice. The entire attack will roll off you or be sent back to the sender automatically. There can be times, however, when the normal defenses do not hold and a more active position will need to be assumed to ensure the well-being of you and your loved ones. Thus far we have dealt only with strictly pacifying, protective, and preventative measures. Under the majority of circumstances, these will be all that is needed. Unfortunately, in some cases, an obsessive enemy will show no sign of stopping his or her harassment, and you will need to resort to more heavy-handed methods to ensure a successful defense. For this reason, it is important to master the techniques of reversal and counter magic. 147. Protection and reversal magic. There is a well-known axiom that has entered Wicca known as the Law of Three. This law is typically interpreted as a sort of amplified karma and states that any harm done by the witch will come back upon her 3 times over. According to some of my contacts in the traditional craft, the original meaning of the Law of Three is a bit different. The idea was that if a witch is harmed or cursed, that she or he should send it back to the offender 3 times over. This ensures that the enemy, should she survive the triple reversal, not attempt the same foolishness again. As this book is a primer on defense only, I will not be concentrating on sending things back 3 times over. It is, however, sometimes a good idea to reverse an attack upon the attacker, forcing her to fall into a trap of her own making. Identifying your attacker, though it's not always necessary, it is beneficial if you know who it is that you are reversing a curse back upon. Unfortunately, this is not always possible. While some less adept sorcerers rely on the psychological power of someone known that he or she has been cursed as part of the curse itself, a truly powerful witch will not reveal his identity, allowing the curse to work in secret. If your enemy has not shown his hand by pointing dramatically and pronouncing a curse verbally, he may have left evidence in the form of physical objects used to deliver the curse to you. Powders such as gopher dust and graveyard dust are common, as are a host of other condition powders such as bend over, crossing, commanding, and blackguards. These powders are usually laid in a place where you will come into contact with them or step on them, such as on the doorstep, in the car, or even on the paper that is mailed to you. Apart from powders, items such as gree bags, jack balls, and paper talismans can also be placed in or around 148 reversals and counter magic your home or office to deliver the power to you. If any of these or other suspect items are found, they can be gathered and used to hone your reversal spells on the correct sender. If there are no items that you can find, perhaps the offender has collected something of yours to use as a link. Think about people who you have had as guests, who may have used your bathroom recently where they could have gotten some hair from your brush or nail clippings from the wastebasket. Think about anyone who had access to your office or your living space. Also think about people who have offered you food or gifts, taking a page out of the Trojan Army playbook. Many types of curses can be delivered through food, and gifts can be dressed and consecrated to convey curses. Next, ask yourself if any of these people would have reason to harm you for any reason. Lastly, assess whether they would have the ability and knowledge to place a curse themselves and, if not, whether they would pay someone to do it on their behalf. There shouldn't be a lot of candidates who fit the bill. If there are, then I would suggest that you have bigger problems than just this one curse. Whether you can come up with suspects using these methods, or if you just think you know who did it, you should always do a definition before attempting a reversal geared at sending the curse back to a specific person. If you pick the wrong person, it is likely that he won't feel the effect of the reversal, but he could pick up some bad energy sent his way in the process. It is also possible that what you think is a curse is actually cross conditions brought on by magical missteps or inadvertently broken oaths. If you attempt to reverse this back upon the sender, you will be sending it back upon yourself, and, like two mirrors being placed face to face, the reflection will go on forever, making the problem worse and worse. 149 Protection and Reversal Magic. A good method for divining the identity of an attacker is to write the names of the suspects on a piece of paper, adding one additional name if unknown in the event that the real culprit is not on your list. Place the pendulum. I use a lodestone pendulum suspended by my own clipped hair, but a store-bought pendulum will work fine over the first name and ask if that person is the one who placed the curse on you. There is not space here to give an extensive teaching on the use of pendulums, but one should be able to clear one's mind, connect with the divine, and then ask if that name is the name of the one who cursed you. If it is, then the pendulum should swing wildly. Other methods such as drawing cards or runes for each name are equally valid. If you find that you are too scattered to do an effective divination, you are potentially under a hex, after all, or if you are too emotionally invested to get an objective answer, a third party should be brought in to do the divining on your behalf. Whatever the preferred method, you should rely on divination to confirm your suspicions, and to see what outcome will be had. I cannot stress this enough. It may be that your reversal will do more harm than good. Early in my magical career, I was the target of a nasty jinx that caused me some minor headaches and broken knickknacks due to fumbled hands. After searching for curse material, I found a sigil on paper under one of the floor mats in my car. I used the paper as a link to reverse the jinx back upon the sender by burning a candle upside down, which will be described on pages 150 to 153. A week or so later it came to my attention that a girlfriend I parted on not so good terms with got into a car accident and was in the hospital with some serious injuries. She wasn't a serious practitioner, but after confronting her with the sigil, she admitted that she had picked up a book and decided 150 reversals and counter magic to lay a jinx on me to show that I wasn't such a good magician. As it happens, most of her jinx was counteracted by my daily rituals and protection measures that she was not taking because she was only a casual practitioner. She received the full force of the jinx she meant to place on me, and because she had no magical protection, it was quite destructive. This was a case where, if I had known the outcome, I would have not reversed the jinx because I would not want to cause that kind of harm to someone I knew, even if they did do something against me out of anger. Reversal spells. Tangled in the devil's shoestrings after deciding whether or not to reverse the spell and, if possible, divining the identity of the culprit, you are ready to do the actual reversal. If you believe that the curse centers on your home, an excellent method for reversing the spell is to get some dirt from the offender's home, 9 pieces of devil's shoestring, and a jar. Begin the spell by bringing to mind the jinx that has been placed upon you. Try as best you can to tap into that force set against you, to get a psychic feel for its frequency. Take up a piece of devil's shoestring in your right hand and trace a cross in the air in front of you, feeling a root gather of the energy of the spell. As you make the vertical arm of the cross say, I am not in power of mine. When making the horizontal arm of the cross, say, Thou art in power of mine. Do this 9 times, once with each piece of devil's 151 protection and reversal magic shoestring. Take all 9 pieces of devil's shoestring and place them in a jar with the dirt from your enemy's house, some red and black pepper, and some poppy seeds, intermingling them all together. Go back to the culprit's house and, as you sprinkle the mix in their yard or on their porch, say, "What malice you have aimed at me shall now be returned unto thee by word and will, so shall it be." Walk away from the home without looking back. This ritual quite literally binds the curse up, removing it from your sphere, and delivers it back upon the sender in one neat package. When you return home, you should banish well, cleanse your house, and fortify whatever protections you have in place. Upside down candle reversal spell. The practice of burning candles upside down is a popular technique often used in cursing, but can also be used to reverse a curse back upon the sender. You will need a black candle, a pot of dirt, and some powdered crab shells. Take the black candle, light it, and place it in a candle holder. As in the previous spell, attempt to mentally tap into the frequency of the powers that have been set against you while concentrating on the candle. This candle now represents the original curse. When your mind has firmly grasped onto the power of the curse, pull the candle up from its holder and snuff it out in the pot of dirt and grab 152 reversals and counter magic shells. This spell will work without the crab shells, but they represent reversal because they walk backwards, and so make an extra element. With your mind intent on reversing the curse back upon the sender, bite the bottom of the candle off, revealing the wick. Light the candle at the end that you bit off and place the candle back in its holder. As you do so, give the following charge. Thy artifice has been reversed, thy curse has been returned by force, and fire and cunning will be thou the victim of thine own ill. All of these actions should be done in an emotional state of justified anger, particularly the snuffing and the biting. Allow the candle to burn all the way down. At the end you can gather up the wax and the dirt and either deposit it at your enemy's house or throw it into moving water. Double action reversal candles. Another candle spell to reverse a jinx uses a special candle, sometimes called a double action reversal candle. This candle is white in the top, signifying the clearing of the curse from your life, and black on the bottom to send the curse back upon the sender. The way that this is used is to dress the candle with reversing oil. Chances are you can purchase condition oil such as this one anywhere that you can buy one of these candles, but if you want to make your own, you can soak dill, and Devil's 153 protection and reversal magic shoestring in a good carrier oil such as almond oil or virgin olive oil. Hold the candle horizontally with the bottom facing you and rub the oil from the bottom to the top, away from your body. As you do this, concentrate on reversing the curse or crossed condition back from where it came. If you know the identity of the target, you should get a photo or some other object link and place it underneath the candle. If you don't know the identity of the target, then simply place a paper under the candle addressed to those who do me harm. Place a drop of reversing oil on each of the four corners and in the center of the paper or photo. Light the candle and pray, Shadow, hear my call to thee, pitiful hate-filled enemy, be malignant if you will, for I am more malignant still. I turn you over to Kate to send the curse back to thee, damning you as the wax burns down, committing your power to the ground. Let the candle burn all the way down, then collect the wax and the personal items and bury them near three-way crossroads. If you can't do this at a three-way crossroads, you can do it at a graveyard, but not on a grave, which would be overkill. The idea is that you are sealing this spell by delivering it to Hikage Tonos, who dwells in the underworld. 154 reversals and counter magic. Spitting back a jinx, the Ergelgal, known to root workers as Little John, is most famous for its use in influencing court cases. A defendant would choose some Little John and then spit it out in the court to influence things in his favor. What is not as well known is that the same spell can also be used for turning back jinxes. Once again, attempt to mentally tune in the frequency of the curse. Then, put pieces of Galgal root in your mouth and chew. As you chew, think about how angry you are at the harm that has been done to you and how justified you are in sending it back to the source. And flame yourself in these thoughts of justice and At the climax, spit the root out with force in the direction that your enemy is in. If you can perform this reversal where the one who originated the curse actually lives, that is even better. If you are unable to divine the source of the jinx, then spit the root toward the west. When you are finished, walk home and don't look back. Perform a banishing ritual when you get home. The lamp of reversal is burned to drive back any ill said against you. To make the lamp, hollow out half a coconut and fill it with vegetable oil. In the oil place 9 needles, 9 pins, 9 nails, and 9 devil's shoestring, and some dill, salt, and rue. 155 protection and reversal magic float wick in a piece of cork. Special wick kits can be bought at most good botanicas and lighted while making the following invocation. Nails, shoestring, rue, salt, and dill hinder my enemies of their will, as they would do ill unto me. Hold them to their own agony. Hear my will addressed to thee by word and will. So shall it be. This lamp is best burned outside, but if you don't have a yard, you can place it in the window. Burn a lamp every Friday for 7 weeks. Be careful to make sure there is enough oil in the lamp at all times. Add more as needed. The mirror cage. We have already touched upon mirrors in the section on protecting the home. For obvious reasons, the mirror is a classic tool for reversing spells back upon their sender. Another way to use the mirror in spell reversal is to get a small box. I use ones shaped as coffins, which can be purchased around Halloween, but any box with a lid will do, and line the inside with shards of mirror, making sure to cover as much surface as possible. Make a pop pet to symbolize your enemy. This can be a simple effigy made from wax. Even a wax figure candle of the appropriate gender will do, or a fabric doll stuffed with Spanish moss. And 156 reversals encounter magic appropriate herbs. If you have an article that was used in the original bewitchment, such as a powder or conjure hand, or if you have a personal link to the target, such as hair or cloth, then you should work it into the doll. If not, include the name paper in the doll, or carve the name of the target onto the doll. If you do not know the name of the offending sorcerer, simply write, "The one who works against me." Hold the doll in the left hand, and with your right hand trace a cross over the doll. As you trace the vertical arm of the cross, say, "I baptize thee, name of target." If you don't know the name of the target, you can substitute the word shadow. As you make the horizontal arm of the cross, say, "Thou art in me power." Place the doll into the box that has been lined with mirror and say the following: "Name of target. For your own sake I pray you no more trouble make, for to torment me for your own gain will only bring you greater pain. For I am a child of Kate, and she is mightier than thee. From this hour forth all ill intent shall back upon thy head be sent in the name of Nebuchadnezzar Aleph, Ereshkigal, and Actiophas, and by my own word and will thou shalt be thine own victim." 157 protection and reversal magic. After you have said the charm and closed the box, you should place it in a safe place on your altar, or bury it somewhere, such as at a crossroads. The spell will have the effect of mirroring anything that the offending warlock does back upon himself, be it good or ill. Before moving on from reversals, I would like to say that while it may be the case that justice is best served by reversing harm back upon the sender, sometimes this will only cause the sender to resort to more volatile measures against you, followed by you resorting to stronger measures to repel them. This is, of course, how wars begin, and like mundane wars, the gain is often not worth the cost. Becoming obsessed with reversing curses often leads to sending them yourself, and can lead to an obsessive life, like that of Heathcliff of Wuthering Heights, who only returned such agonies as he himself received. Your whole life can get sucked into a web of justified vengeance. This is, to my mind, not a good way to live life or an effective way to deal with interlopers, and so I offer you counter magic techniques aimed at ridding yourself of your enemy. Counter magic. We will define counter magic as magic that is done to counteract an attack, but is not a direct protection from or reversal of that attack. The full range of possibilities is wide indeed. and could even include our own offensive curses. However, because this is a book geared toward protection, and there are more than enough ways to deal with these situations without generating our own offensive magic, I will 158 reversals and counter magic forego teaching anything meant to outright harm an enemy. We will be focusing on binding, confusing, and expelling all techniques that are used to get an enemy to stop focusing on causing harm without going ahead and causing harm ourselves. Because counter magic techniques all focus on removing us from an enemy's environment or the enemy from ours, they are the most useful techniques for dealing with non-magical dangers. If someone is threatening your life or the lives of your loved ones with physical violence, shields and amulets may have some effect, but eventually you will need to remove that person from your life to be safe. Just as I do not recommend trying to deal with medical or psychological problems without consulting professionals in those fields first, counter magic should not take the place of law enforcement professionals when dealing with a dangerous person. If someone has threatened your life or the lives of the people you love, I think you have every right to use the following methods of binding, expelling, confusing, and silencing against him, but you will be doing yourself a disservice if you don't contact the authorities. Indeed, it is often through the agency of the authorities that the binding or expelling takes effect in these cases. Whether the danger you face is mundane or spiritual, it is through counter magic that very persistent problems can be laid to rest and ongoing wars settled. Binding and influencing bindings are used to stop someone from doing a particular thing or to heavily influence someone towards doing something, in our case leaving us and our loved ones or clients alone. 159 Protection and Reversal Magic. Bend over powder. Just as powders such as gopher dust are used in jinxing and cursing, and other powders such as red brick dust are used for protection, there are also powders used in counter magic. A good one for binding is the famous bend over powder, which is made with licorice root, calamus root, and High John the Conqueror ground into a powder and mixed with a base powder such as talcum. The powder is then used by laying it where the target will step on or touch it. If laying the powder on the ground to send through the feet, it is done while walking backwards and is often laid in a 5-spot pattern such as you would find on dice. If not, then you can keep the powder in your pocket and deliver it by a handshake directly. Another time-honored way to deliver a powder is to sprinkle someone a letter and mail it to the target, making sure that only an undetectable amount is left. We don't want to get arrested for causing an anthrax scare. This powder can be especially effective if you are confronting the enemy face-to-face to work out differences. If used in this manner, you can coat your hand with the dust to make sure that he or she comes into contact with the dust at some point during the conversation. Once he does, you should attempt to focus your gaze on your enemy's forehead between the eyebrows. If you can focus your will like a laser beam on this point, you will be able to dominate the conversation and affect the mind of the target. At the very least, by using your gaze in this way, any magical attempts to do the same to you will be returned or counteracted. 160 Reversals and Counter Magic. Tanglefoot Charm. A Tanglefoot Charm is an old European spell of binding using a cord. It can be used to stop someone from doing any one particular thing. That thing could be a curse or other type of harassment, but also could be something else such as going to work. Even in purely altruistic cases, you must remember that magic manifests in natural ways, and you must be willing to accept the consequences of your actions. A few years back, a friend of mine was being stalked and came to me for help. Using a letter that he had written for her as a link, I used the Tanglefoot Charm to bind him from stalking her. For a week and a half, there was no change. He would sit outside her house at night and call constantly. I thought perhaps that the spell didn't work and I would have to move to something stronger. Then one night my friend heard a crash outside her bedroom window. When she looked outside, she saw a ladder on the ground and her stalker splayed over the fence. He had broken both of his legs and suffered other small injuries. This was also enough for her to press charges. He stalked her no more. I was more than happy to accept the responsibility for that, but some would not be. I again urge the reader to divine the outcome of your work to the best of your ability. To work the Tanglefoot charm, you will need some link to the target that can be tied into red cord. Taking the red cord in the left hand, concentrate on the thing that you wish your enemy not to do anymore and tie 9 knots in the cord starting at the outer edges and moving them like this. -1, -3, -5, -7, -9, -8, -6, -4, -2, 161 protection and reversal magic. As you do so, say the following incantation with each knot. Name of target. I conjure thee by the power of earth, thou art tangled by the power of rock, thou art bound by the power of clay, thou art chained, held in place by the weight of the ground. Work the personal item of the target into the 9th knot. When you have completed this, go to a crossroads and bury the cord there, saying the following. Name of target, I bury your power to do harm to me, or whatever the binding is for. Twisted and tangled, chained and bound, I lay thee to rest, committed to ground, walk away from the sight of do not look back. Graveyard binding. Another excellent binding uses the grave of a soldier or police officer. Take a material link of the harm doer, such as a photo or cloth, and wrap it up with 9 pieces of devil's shoestring, or some knotweed. If you have some lead, wrap it in lead, the metal of Saturn. If not, you can wrap it up in aluminum foil, shiny side in. Take it to the grave of the loved one, relative, for 162 reversals, encounter Magick soldier and make an offering of whiskey or a dime, as if you were collecting graveyard dust. Dig a shallow hole over where you suppose the right hand is located and bury the charm there. It is best to use your own words for this spell, speaking directly to the spirit in the grave, but it should go something like this. Name of spirit in the grave, I come to you to ask for your help. Name of enemy has caused me harm and will not leave me alone. I give them to you. Keep them away from me until I return for them. Accept my payment and do this for me, I pray. Leave the gravesite and never return. Obviously, if this is a grave you visit often, for magical or sentimental reasons, it is not a good grave to use. You should make sure it is a grave that you will never visit again. To stop talk about you, the following spell is said to bind the enemy from even talking about you. Take a beef tongue and wrap up your links to the enemy in a paper with the following seal of Saturn upon it, covering the target's name. Figure 7.1, 163 protection and reversal magic. You can dress the sigil paper with oils and powders of binding as you choose. Slice open the beef tongue and place the paper and seal inside, then sew it back up. Place the tongue in the back of your freezer and say the following. Irishiggle, Nocticula, he Kate grow forth and witness my right. Seize my enemy's tongue. May not even his words exist. Psyche, Psyche, Psyche. So shall it be. Another way to silence an enemy or noisy neighbor, for that matter, is a simple green bag made from licorice root, slippery elm, and adder's tongue. Wrap it up in a black bag and plant the bag under the person's doorstep or somewhere in their yard or house. Confusion when binding is not possible. Another way to remove an enemy working against you without bringing him or her into direct harm are rites of confusion. Some see this as a type of jinx in and of itself, but confusion spells have been used in hoodoo and witchcraft as protection for many, many years. When faced with an obsessive enemy who will not give up after protection and reversal rites have been worked, a bit of confusion can be a tame but effective way to deal with that enemy. 164 reversals encounter magic. Confusion powder. This powder is used in the same way as the other powders and is, to my mind, one of the best ways to deliver this type of spell. A couple of years ago, I had a client who was in danger of losing his business because the owner of a restaurant chain wanted the space he was in. This person was also spreading rumors about my client and causing him all kinds of hassle with the town in an effort to get him to move. To make matters worse, My friend believed that one of the restaurant owner's family members was a witch and was working against the store magically. I happened to know from prior experience that his suspicions about this were correct, and after several readings decided that a confusion spell was the best option. I surrounded the restaurant with confusion powder on a new moon and prayed to Kate as I did so. I spread some on the doormats as well. I soon began to hear complaints about the restaurant, and it was not long after that it was temporarily closed for health violations. Soon thereafter, the financial backer who was going to help him buy my friend's store fell through. This ritual went almost exactly as I planned, and I was happy with the results. However, I must stress that you should always do a divination to get an idea of what your results will be. I was more than prepared to accept responsibility for this person to lose money by having his restaurant temporarily closed and for him to suffer other minor problems. But if the reading had indicated people getting seriously hurt by my spell, I would have used something else. Confusion spells are tricky in this 165 protection and reversal magic way, as confusion can be the cause of vehicular accidents and all kind of more serious issues. I am not here to preach to you, only to tell you that you need to be responsible for your actions. Confusion powder is made with poppy seeds, twitch grass, and black mustard seeds added to a powder base such as talcum. Some people color their powders, and if you do, the appropriate color would be red. If you want to cause arguments and infighting as well as confusion amongst your enemies, add in black and red pepper. The same recipe could be used to make not only a powder, but an oil or incense. The clever witch will be able to employ all three, such as in the following spell. A confusion doll. If there is someone in your life who is perpetually causing you problems and sending psychic attacks your way, but who you can't cut ties with completely, such as a family member, it may be a good idea to make a confusion doll of that person that you can activate at will. To make the doll, get the best personal link you can. Make a frame from 2 pieces of wood tied together as a cross. You can make the body of the doll from the target's clothing. Failing that, use red cloth and make a body around the cross using a combination of Spanish moss and twitch grass wrapped in the cloth. You can make a head for the doll out of clay or use the head of an actual doll. If using clay, work poppy and black mustard seeds into the clay before making the head. If using an actual doll's head, stuff it with the seeds. 166 reversals and counter magic with your right hand. Trace a cross over the doll. As you make the vertical bar, say, I name thee, name of target. As you make the horizontal bar, say, thou art, name of target. Confusion incense either purchased from the store or made from all the herbs mentioned so far, and hold the doll over the smoke with your left hand. As you hold the doll over the smoke, bring to mind all the harm that the target has done to you in the past. Inflame yourself with righteous rage and desire for justice. Allow this to flow into the doll as you say, Inimica's carpal. Phased and flustered, vexed and addled, lost in the smoke of delusion, I hold thee firm, bewildered and bound, casted to confusion by word, and will address to thee confusion to name of target thee. Expelling. The last type of counter magic that I want to cover is that of expelling, more commonly known in root working as hot-footing. This type of magic is aimed at getting a person to leave your environment totally. Usually you are either expelling the person from a home, from a job, or from a town. As with the other types of counter magic, we will begin with a powder. 167 protection and reversal magic. Hot foot powder. Generally speaking, anything hot or stinging can be used in hot foot powder. My favorite recipe for the powder is red and black pepper, crushed hornets or red ants, sulfur, poppy seeds, and witch's salt, salt that has been blackened with soot. This powder is used in a similar way as the others and is particularly potent if it can be sent through the foot by having them walk on it or by putting it in their shoes. One of my favorite ways to use this is to sprinkle it on the doorstep or office of the target, then drop a little bit at each crossroads leading out of town. praying for the person to move each time you drop it. One sorcerer I know uses the entire Catholic rite of exorcism when doing rites like this, but I liked the following incantation. By the fire of Azazel, I send thee to the desert. Bearer, eaten natsu. Bearer, eaten natsu. Bearer, eaten nazi you bang one. Another method of sending through the feet if you can't get the person to walk on it. Another traditional way to send through the foot is to pick up the footprint of the target. A close friend of mine was having issues with a 168 reversals encounter magic coworker a couple years back, and reported to me that he was having a strange run of bad headaches and worse luck. He confided to me that the coworker he was having trouble with practice magic, and he thought it was probable that he was putting a jinx on him and wanted my help. Readings indicated that he was correct, and I used a reversal spell to turn magic back. It seemed to work for a while, but then the attack was renewed. We did this one more time, but the same thing happened. It became apparent that we needed to separate them entirely. I had my friend watch where his target walked when leaving the office. I instructed him to quietly pick up some dirt from one of his footprints, which he did. He brought the dirt back to me, and I mixed in red and black pepper, sulfur, and some crushed hornets. I bottled the whole thing up in a jar and tossed the jar into some running water. As I did, I said, by Agron, by Cositas, by Fulton, sticks, and left I cast thee out. May not even the memory of your name remain. By the Agron, by the Cositas, by the Fulton, sticks, and left to begone. 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 Shortly after the spell was cast, the target found a better paying job and moved on. It worked out to be the best for everyone. In fact, if you are worried about causing someone 169 protection and reversal magic harm, you can add herbs of blessing, such as Angelica, to the expelling powder mix to help the target move on to better circumstances. An interesting variant of this type of spell was recorded by the priest and anthropologist Harry Middleton Hyatt. Rather than bottling up the foot track and casting it into a river, his informant told of putting the dirt and the hot foot materials into a hollowed-out shotgun shell and shooting it off into the distance, while praying to Jesus for the person to be removed from your life. I haven't ever tried this method, but the drama alone would be powerful. Spirits and counter magic spirits can be used in counter magic as well. Many of the guardian spirits from various traditions also function in this capacity. In Tibet, for instance, a form of the goddess Tara known as Ozul Shen rides upon a pick and carries a needle and thread that she uses to sew up the eyes and ears of enemies. Many angels and spirits from the Grimoires can also be summoned for binding and expelling people from your life, and you can follow the instructions in those texts to summon them. In particular, I have used Zazzle, the spirit of Saturn from Agrippa's 3 books of occult philosophy, in binding with excellent results. The guardian spirit Apoxius, whose summoning we covered in the previous chapter, can also be used in counter magic, and 170 reversals in counter magic excels at binding, confusing, and expelling. To use him in this way, you should set up an altar with his bottle in front of you. Feed the bottle with energy and chant the summoning mantra IOEPOXISIOHO. When you feel that you have gotten his attention, you should ask him to bind, confuse, or expel from your life the person or spirit who is harassing you. If you want to make sure that no harm is brought to the target, then you should say so. In cases where your life is in danger, you may choose to let Apoxius act as he will. As always, you must take responsibility for your own actions. If you have a link to the target, you should fold it up in a paper, taking care to fold the paper away from you as you do it. Draw the sigil of Apoxius on the paper and place the bottle on top of it. If the personal link is too bulky to fit under the bottle, then place it in front of the bottle instead. Artificial elementals in counter magic. I have already talked a bit about artificial elementals in the chapter on guardians. They can also be put to great use in the field of counter magic, But instead of earth and water, we focus on the elements of air for confusion and fire for expelling. To recap, an artificial elemental is a spirit form created by the magician and imbued with power from one or more of the four elements and given temporary artificial consciousness through the sorcerer's will. 171 Protection and Reversal Magic. The first thing that you will need is a name and a statement of purpose. Because I have already given the general form of how to create an artificial spirit in the previous chapter, it may be helpful to use an example from real life. An occult group that I belonged to in Philadelphia had admitted a person that soon proved to be dangerous in both magical and mundane ways. Though he didn't outright attack anyone in the group, several people felt threatened, and it was clear that some of his activities were criminal, to say the least. A friend and I decided to do an expelling rite, and we created an artificial fire elemental to do so. Because the element was fire, the planet associated with what we wanted was Mars. We took those words, fire and figure 7.2 sigil of Ramsif Mars, and made the name RAMSIEF. Combining those letters into a sigil, we came up with figure 7.2. Bringing in influence from the zodiac sign Aries, we decided that Ramsif would appear as a ram-headed, very large red humanoid with 6 arms, each of which held a flaming axe. Another, and perhaps better, method we could have used for all this was to make an invocation to the element fire and the planet Mars and asked for inspiration. We might have received a vision of the elemental name and seal either in meditation or dream. In this case, though, we decided to construct it entirely ourselves. After opening a circle and invoking the watchtowers in our typical fashion, we marked out a triangle on the altar and began 172 reversals and counter magic to breathe the element fire, which has the qualities of heat, dryness, and expansion. Once we had gathered a sufficient amount of fire element in our bodies, we projected it out into the triangle, first seeing it gather its cloud of flames, then seeing that take the shape of Ramsif. Once the figure was formed and could be seen by both my partner and I, we drew our wands, the tool associated with fire in our tradition, and pointing at Ramsif, addressed it thus: by the lords of the southern gate, by the white ones of the noontide hour, by the sovereign spirits of notice, and by all the jinn of the desert, I name thee Ramsif. Thou art Ramsif. Go forth and expel, name of target, from this city. Remove him from our midst. Accomplish this within the space of 3 moons. On the 3rd full moon, whether you have accomplished your task or not, dissipate back into the element of fire and seek the peace of oblivion. Heed my words and do my will. Fiat. 173 Protection and Reversal Magic. In all cases of reversal and counter magic, you should always remember to do a divination and be sure that you really are under spiritual attack from another human being, and not experiencing crossed conditions stemming from your own missteps or retribution from spirits of one kind or another. You should attempt as much as possible to see the outcome of your spells, because you must take responsibility for that outcome. Unless you have a professional magical practice of some kind, it is likely that you will only need these lessons 2 or 3 times during your entire life. People who find themselves constantly embroiled in psychic showdowns are generally not under real attack, and are just using the occult to draw some drama into an otherwise dull existence. If you do find yourself the target of magical attacks very often, I would suggest that asking yourself why and making changes in your friends and lifestyle will serve you better than all the reversals and counter magic in the world. That being said, magical attacks do occur, and mastering the techniques in this chapter can help preserve your health and well-being in tight situations. 174 Chapter 8 Healing and Recovery. Whatever the particular circumstances of your situation, when the dust settles and all the methods of attack and defense have been exhausted, it is time to clean up the mess and get back to business as usual. After you reaffirm your regular defenses and repair any cracks in the fortress, you will need to tend to your wounds. The residual effects of magical attack can linger like an attack in and of itself. These problems range from physical symptoms such as aches and pains, to psychological symptoms, such as an inability to sleep, depression, and unexplainable anxiety. Even more probable are outward conditions, such as run of bad luck and a feeling of being out of step with time. In all cases, occult treatment should not replace medical treatment. Medical doctors, therapists, and psychologists should be consulted. 175. Protection and reversal magic when appropriate. It is also beneficial to seek the help of professional psychic healers from whatever tradition you come from, be it Reiki practitioners or the local shaman. The first and best way to make reparations after an attack is prayer and acts of devotion. Thank the gods and the spirits for taking care of you in your hour of need. If you worship no gods, then direct your devotion to the enlightened ones who have gone before you and serve as guides on the path. Direct it to the universe itself. It is not my place to tell you how to pray or what to pray to, but I do want to stress the awesome potential of energized prayer. I again refer you to the advice of Israel Regardai, who said to inflame thyself with prayer. Healing the home and relations. Before we deal with the specifics of healing yourself or another person, it's a good idea to make sure the home is situated first. You can start by doing banishing in each room and then using the cleansing and reversing floor washes and incenses that were covered in the chapter on home protection. After the house is clear, you will want to work to provide a peaceful atmosphere using some of the following methods. Scenting the air, as you have probably been burning a great deal of incense during your defense, and then again to clear the house. I tend to stay away from peace incenses post-combat. If you do want to burn incense, I recommend very simple fragrances such as sandalwood, lavender, or a frankincense combination. 176. Healing and recovery. If you don't want to burn incense, a good way to establish a calm spiritual atmosphere is to place camphor blocks in the corners of the room, as camphor is known to calm down spirits while only emitting a minor scent. Placing potpourri herbs around the house is also a good method. I use a combination of cinnamon, pine, and sandalwood to help cultivate calm. Peace water in New Orleans. A popular method for bringing peace to the home is said to have been invented by the famous voodoo queen Marie Laveau. It entails making a 5-water wash that consists of rainwater, river water, spring water, ocean water, and holy water from a church. If you don't have access to one of these waters, it can be replaced by Florida water. This water can be used as a floor wash or simply sprinkled around the home. Another method of making peace water is simply layering oil and water in a bottle, the idea being that you are spreading anointing oil over troubled waters. Sweetening relations. One of the most common symptoms of magical attack is relationship problems. If during the attack you experience difficulties with your spouse, children, or others in your life, a good way to sweeten things up is to use a honey jar. All that is needed for this is a jar, lots of honey, a few sweets, such as 177 protection and reversal magic molasses and sugar, and a personal item from each of the people who need relationship healing. It is best if everyone who is going to be linked to the bottle knows about the spell and gives their link over willingly, but it is not strictly necessary. Place all the items in the jar and burn a white candle on top of the jar while saying, "Buy honey, sugar, and all things sweet, establish understanding and peace. May goodwill reign between me and thee, as I will, so shall it be." Keep the jar in the bedroom if it is intended to heal relations between you and your spouse, and near the hearth if it is to work for your whole family. If sexual problems were caused by the attack, you can make one just for you and your partner and add sex fluids and pubic hairs to the jar, as well as love items such as Adam and Eve root, pairs of blood root, Queen Elizabeth root, trillium, and the ever-popular raccoon penis bone. Healing the individual. After establishing an atmosphere of peace and good relations in which to convalesce, we must now set about tending to your own wounds. Just as we went back over the house with the floor wash and incense, you should also make sure every last remnant of your recent troubles is washed away in one of the spiritual cleansing and reversal 178 healing and recovery baths that were given earlier in the book. You can also round out the elements by smoking yourself in one of the exorcism incenses given earlier or smudging yourself with sage. To do this, you can have someone else smoke you, or you can place the censer under a chair and let the smoke rise up around you as you meditate or just relax. Relaxation to combat feelings of anxiety and stress that often accompany a magical attack. I have found it beneficial to use the following relax at ion methods. The first takes a bit of time and should be done once a day or so. Basically, all that needs to be done is each part of the body needs to be focused on piece by piece and will to relax. Begin at the toes of the right foot. Focus on them and mentally tell them to relax. Feel them do so. Move to the toes of the left foot and do the same. Move to the left foot sole. Do the same. The top of the left foot is next. Then the right sole. Then the top of the right foot. Then the left and right ankles. Continue to move up the body, making sure that you get the front and back of each part. Go all the way up to the crown of the head. Take note of any resistance in your body to the command to relax. Spend some extra time on that area. If you like, you can visualize a golden healing light moving up the body wherever you are focusing, but this is not necessary. This entire process may take up to 20 or 30 minutes at first, but once you get the hang of it and become more relaxed in general, it will